Plus. OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
7:30 on this Thursday morning. You're welcome along to OTB AM. It is Eoin and Sheahan with you right the way through until 10 o'clock this morning, and there is plenty to get through over the next couple of hours. We're going to be joined by Daniel Harris in about 15 minutes' time to talk about the Champions League, to talk about Manchester City going 10 points clear in the Premier League, and Manchester United, of course, in Europa League action tonight. We have got Mike Quirke as well joining us after 8 to chat through the life of an inter-county manager in 2020+1. And there's virtual insanity ahead of the Genesis Invitational. Thom Malone's countdown to Cheltenham continues, and Sur Murphy's TV picks are up as ever on a Thursday. So a packed few hours for you, and you can tweet us at Off The Ball if you want to get in touch about anything. You can comment on the YouTube stream as well. Shane Hannon, good morning.
Morning, Eoin. How are things?
Very well. So 2 days ago, Kylian Mbappe went out and said, I am going to destroy Barcelona. He said to Mauricio Pochettino, I'm going to get you your first win in the Camp Nou. Last night, Erling Haaland said, hold my beer, and Borussia Dortmund looked like they might actually be a force to be reckoned with in this season's Champions League.
They're terrifying prospects, the two of them. I mean, if you were a defender coming up against either one of these players, you're not too fancying of your chances before kickoff. But Haaland, even his comments after the match were quite interesting in that he referenced Kylian Mbappe. The fact that they're feeding off each other and in a similar vein to Ronaldo and Messi, where if one performs well, the other performs well as well. And, you know, he's breaking records. I think it's 10 goals in 7 Champions League games for Erling Haaland. He's scored against every single team he's played in the Champions League as well. And looking at the stats last night, he's only the 5th player in Champions League history to score twice in 3 consecutive appearances. And he's in esteemed company there as well. Filippo Inzaghi, Giovanni Elber, Ronaldo 3 times, and Robert Lewandowski. So this is a kid who is doing all the right things. And you have to remember, he's a couple of years Mbappe's junior as well. He's only 20 and Mbappe's 22. So he still has that on him, I guess.
And it almost seems as if Erling Haaland does still look up a little bit to Kylian Mbappe. Like, let's not forget that Mbappe has halfway won France a World Cup in his career already. I think maybe the comparisons between Haaland and Mbappe, we need to cool the jets in them a little while. I think Mbappe is clearly there. We will hear from Erling Haaland right now, actually, because he was talking about Kylian Mbappe. He was asked about Kylian Mbappe when speaking on Norwegian TV last night.
Yeah, it was good to score goals. I love Champions League, and when I saw Mbappe score the hat-trick yesterday, I got free motivation. So thanks to him, and yeah, it was a nice evening.
You are in challenge with Mbappe?
No. I saw Mbappe yesterday, and he scored some nice goals, and I got the free boost from him. So yeah, it was nice.
You think that there is no sort of rivalry here at all, Shane? You think it's game over, job done? Kylian Mbappe needs to settle for the world's second best player. He needs to settle for the silver version of the Ballon d'Or over the next couple of years, because this is Erling's world.
It's hard to compare. It's like choosing your favourite child. Like, we cannot argue against Kylian Mbappe's extraordinary talent. And a lot of people online, I think, are Kylian Mbappe fans over Erling Haaland. And, you know, Simon Cooper was on the Off The Ball last night, and he spoke about Mbappe being this very tuned in kid as well, where he's very cognizant of social issues. He's got a head on his shoulders, as they say, and he's someone who is popular. And we've all seen the photographs of him with the posters up in his room when he was a kid. He's just a likeable guy, Kylian Mbappe. But I'm an Erling Haaland man, and he's so important to the club, but also they have a new manager coming in next season in Marco Rose, Borussia Dortmund, but they're currently 6th in the Bundesliga table. So clearly his performances haven't been propelling them towards the top of the Bundesliga table. And if they fail to qualify for the Champions League next year, which could very well be the case if they don't win the Champions League this season, Erling Haaland will be off. So we'll be seeing a lot more of him, I think, because the Premier League is certainly one of the possible destinations, one of the Manchester clubs. There was a great quote from Sid Lowe in The Guardian last night, and this is the thing about Erling Haaland and why he's so likeable, that every match report in which he's involved, He brings out the best in sports writing, I think, because people run out of superlatives for him. Sid Lowe writes in The Guardian this morning, last night, in fact, after the match, Haaland is something else, factory built, but breaking the mould. Every time he set off, you could feel the fear and intake of breath accompanying the surge, the needle on the speedometer climbing steadily, and defenders backing away as if scared to stand in the path of this thing, this machine. It, after all, wasn't going to stop. And that's the fear you see when you watch Haaland play. You see the what he does to defenders. Defenders can't concentrate. They can't play properly. No, it was the same for Gerard Piqué against Kylian Mbappe the other night. But that's why we love these two players. I can't take the credit for this reference, but our own producer, Tommy Rooney, kind of bringing up references between, or comparisons between Erling Haaland and someone like Rory Woods, that he's this big presence that takes over, that distracts players in the other team simply by being there. And that's Erling Haaland. I mean, if you have distracted defenders in the other team before kickoff, you're doing something right. And he's an extraordinary talent. 28 goals between them in the Champions League, Mbappe and Haaland, since the start of last season. Messi and Ronaldo have only 15 between them in the same time. So extraordinary talents. But yeah, I'm an Erling Haaland man. And
he's going to be delighted this morning being compared to Rory Woods. Like that is what you live for. Like, forget the Champions League comparisons to Woods is all you want. For me, I think that we need to see the two of these in the same league soon. Well, at least that's what we want. I think that if Erling Haaland happens to go, or if Kylian Mbappe happens to go to Real Madrid this summer, then someone needs to get their shit together and get Erling Haaland to Barcelona, because we need them playing in the same league together if we want this comparison to be true. It is unfair to judge a player who is shooting the lights out in Ligue 1 to a player who is trying to chase down Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga. And you described there how poor they've been going recently in the Bundesliga, Borussia Dortmund. So that's one reason why it's a little bit unfair. I think the age gap is a little bit unfair on Erling Haaland even at the moment. And I think right now it's actually less of a debate than people think. I think Mbappe is clearly the best player in Europe at the moment, and Haaland is a tiny bit behind him, but he might catch up to him. It kind of reminds me actually of the debate that Nathan Murphy actually likes to bring up between Conor Callaghan and David Clifford. To me, it seems like Erling Haaland is the David Clifford of the world and Kylian Mbappe is the Conor Callaghan of the world, where one is a little bit older. You can say that one is maybe a little bit more dynamic insofar as he can do a little bit more around the pitch, whereas the other is just a goal-scoring machine. And I'm sure Erling Haaland, as you've already described, could probably kick a few points as well. So we need them in the same league for that proper Messi versus Ronaldo, that Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird type rivalry, where they're going up against each other in the big competitions or in their main domestic competition, and we're seeing them going up against the same opposition, really. And that is the way we can have a perfect comparison. And I think we deserve that. I think that would be the best way to enjoy these two stars over the next decade or so.
Yeah, like you mentioned Magic Johnson, there is a Michael Jordan aura of Erling Haaland, of both of them in fact, but the confidence and cockiness that Erling Haaland possesses, and why wouldn't he? He's such a talented player, but at 20 years of age to possess that kind of cockiness, and it's the thing you kind of worry about when you see a couple of generational talents like this, whereby, as you mentioned, you want to see them in the same league, in the same country, but sometimes you have two players of this kind of ilk that come along and they never get to play in the same league. Possibly because there's a lack of confidence on one of their sides and they don't ever want to come up against the other player 3 or 4 times in a season, in the same vein as Ronaldo and Messi. But I don't think that's an issue with these players. Haaland wouldn't balk at the prospect of coming up against Kylian Mbappe or anyone, for that matter, in any given season in a domestic league. So, you know, if Mbappe does go to Spain, there's nothing stopping Erling Haaland joining him there. Now, we would all love to see Erling Haaland in the Premier League, and I think he would be extraordinary in the Premier League as well, but maybe the boat has sailed on Manchester United, and there is the history there, and his father's history against Manchester United, I guess, and his father's opinion is going to be one that he takes very seriously. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has tried in vain to bring him to Old Trafford, but if the Norwegian link doesn't work, then it's just not going to happen to Manchester United. But yeah, we would absolutely love to see the pair of them together, absolutely.
Our producer, Tommy Rooney, is having an absolute fit this morning because you went public with his Rory Woods comparison. I think you might have been saying that in jest earlier, but it's out there. It's in the ether now. Erling Haaland is indeed Rory Woods.
He's a Dunamine man.
We've got a couple of... Yeah, we've got a couple of polls up, and it seems that Mbappe is running away with it on Instagram at the moment, 63% of the vote there. The question on this one is you could choose one. Who do you build your team around? So maybe not necessarily who's the better player, but who do you build your team around? And people will say Kylian Mbappe. Plenty of comments coming in. Luke says Mbappe scores and assists and he's all the pace. Kim says Haaland's stats are unbelievable for just a 20-year-old lad. How he has scored against all his Champions League opposition. Connor says Haaland's the better player, the better goal scorer, more natural finisher, on a par with Mbappe in regards to pace. And Dave says Haaland is 2 years younger, isn't surrounded by the stars that are Paris Saint-Germain, and still looks world class. So that's where the poll is at the moment. You can get onto Instagram for that. And I guess this is the other realistic scenario here as well, Shane, is that if it's not going to be replicated in the Liga, the Premier League outside of Manchester United, could there be a Liverpool with Mbappe and a Manchester City with Erling Haaland vista in our horizon? Because you look at where Manchester City need to sign, and they certainly need a top class number 9 soon.
We often have this debate that, what is the best league in the world? The Premier League is often mentioned in the top echelons, and rightly so. But if you can't attract the best players, if the likes of Mbappe and Haaland do end up both in La Liga, you have to start questioning the Premier League's merits, the Premier League's ability to draw in the best players. Granted, we had Ronaldo. The Premier League had Ronaldo for years at Manchester United, but if both of these players go to Spain, I guess any argument that comes up between La Liga and the Premier League is automatically answered. Any league that has the best players is the best league in the world. So, yeah, maybe one of them could end up with Liverpool, and if Klopp stays for another year or two, that might be an attractive prospect for someone like Erling Haaland. But can you imagine the season ticket prices? Fans would pay to see these lads week in, week out, and it's just extraordinary what both of them can do. It's the only reason that Tommy, I guess, mentioned the Rory Woods reference in jest. He's got a presence on the pitch, Erling Haaland. Now, Kylian Mbappe has the pace, and certainly players know he's there. But Haaland has this brute force that just makes him stand out from all the other players. Even for his first goal last night, the determination he showed to get there ahead of the goalkeeper. He's got that predatory instinct that just makes a great setter forward. And it is like apples and oranges comparing these two great footballers, but what an extraordinary thing it would be to see them in the same league, regardless of the league.
Yeah, definitely. OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Phil Egan, where do you want to see Erling Haaland end up?
I want to see the two lads playing up front together. That's what I'm looking for.
That's option C for sure. Where could that viably happen?
I don't think it would happen, but they actually, I think they will complement each other, because Mbappe has that ability to kind of drift into wide areas, whereas Haaland is more down the centre. But I think it's a tough one. I don't like the whole you have to pick one of them, because they're both exceptional players, but I think Haaland will end up scoring more goals, because there's just something more emphatic about the way he finishes. He's just, when the ball falls to him, you just know he's going to absolutely bury it. I think back to even a game, I remember watching him recent enough, he was playing for Norway against Northern Ireland, and his goals, there's just something just so emphatic about them, where the ball falls to him and you know not only is he going to put it in the back of the net, but the keeper has absolutely no chance, and he just is a goal scoring machine. Mbappe obviously has a few more subtleties about him, but obviously we saw the other night as well what a quality finisher he is. But yeah, you definitely think Mbappe is more likely to end up in Spain. Not so sure about Haaland, because is it a case now where Real Madrid or Barcelona, are they going to have the money to be able to get these kind of players? Simon Cooper was on Off the Ball last night just talking about a book that he's doing at the moment on Barcelona, and he's predicting some grim years now for Barcelona. So how do they attract a player like Haaland or Mbappe? Even though they have the history and the pedigree, they're certainly not the team or the club that they were a few years ago. So Real Madrid, I think, is Mbappe's most likely destination. Who signs Haaland? I mean, Chelsea or Manchester City would appear to be the most likely at the moment.
Well, you could get your dream by Paris Saint-Germain pulling out the checkbook and getting all that fair money into the bank account of Erling Haaland and into the bank account of Borussia Dortmund, and having them link up with Paris Saint-Germain next season. Who knows? Stranger things have happened.
That would be just so unfair on the defences in Ligue 1, that Erling Haaland, you know those games where PSG win 3 or 4-0, with Haaland there they'd be winning 7 and 8-0 every week.
What is going on this morning, Phil? I presume it's football all the way?
Yeah, but you know what? Before we get into the football, obviously, while we were asleep, Serena Williams was in action at the Australian Open, and that bid to win a record equaling 24th Grand Slam singles title is over because Naomi Osaka has beaten Williams, as she did in the 2018 US Open final. Osaka has that great record going at the moment. She's unbeaten in 20 matches, and a player certainly in form. We know that hard court is her specialist surface, and it was a nervy enough start from Osaka, but as she grew into it, she ends up beating Serena Williams 6-3, 6-4. So she's into the finals. That ends Serena Williams' bid for the record equaling 24th Grand Slam that obviously Margaret Court holds at the moment. We don't know if Serena Williams will ever get to that 24 mark, but Osaka's never lost a Grand Slam final. She's going to play Jennifer Brady in the final. She beat Karolina Muchova in 3 sets. Novak Djokovic will be in action later on, the first of the men's semi-finals. Djokovic, the defending champion, takes on Russian qualifier Aslan Karatsev. Moving on to the football now. Obviously, we talked about Manchester City there. They are just, looks like they're going to walk away with this Premier League title because they're 10 points clear after last night's 3-1 win away to Everton. Everton had actually equalised. Good work from Seamus Coleman, who came on in the first half as a substitute. But City obviously showed just why they're on this unbelievable 17-game winning streak, and they're 10 points clear of Manchester United and Leicester, and obviously they play United in the next few weeks. Burnley manager Sean Dyche says he was protecting Robbie Brady from injury last night. So Brady came on in Burnley's 1-1 draw with Fulham. Now, he came on in the second half as a substitute, but was then taken off 24 minutes later, and it wasn't exactly the greatest cameo from him. But Dyche says Brady has an Achilles problem, so that actually stopped him from running properly. That's why he took him off, and it wasn't the dreaded substitute being substituted off. Sometimes you just see they're having such a bad game. But Celtic made it 5 Premiership wins in a row in the Scottish Premiership. That's a 1-0 win over Aberdeen. They're 15 points behind leaders Rangers. Obviously now they have the same amount of games played. Now, we were talking about Erling Haaland, scored twice for Borussia Dortmund, so they're in the driving seat away after their 3-2 win away to Sevilla. But Sevilla scored late on in that game, Luke de Jong with the goals, so certainly the tie still alive for Sevilla in the last 16. Porto beat Juventus 2-1. Again, Juventus scored a late goal in that game to keep them in it. They obviously have that away goal now, so that one's still finally poised heading into the second leg. Tonight, it's all about the Europa League. You've got the last 32. Just the way things are with coronavirus travel restrictions, there's a few of these games that will be played at neutral venues. Manchester United, for example, in Turin to face Real Sociedad. Rome is the venue for Arsenal's game against Benfica. Tottenham are taking on Austrian side Wolfsburg with that game in Budapest. Leicester actually do play a team where they're meant to be playing them, and that is away to Slavia Prague, so that game in the Czech capital. And Rangers are in Belgium to play Royal Antwerp. Here's one for you now. Bournemouth are confident that Thierry Henry is going to be their next manager. Jonathan Woodgate obviously currently in charge since Jason Tindall was sacked 2 weeks ago, and Bournemouth actually won last night, so they're 6 points ahead of Cardiff in terms of the playoff places. Bournemouth occupy that last one, 6th place, but Henry obviously in charge of MLS side Montreal Impact. He's among a list of candidates with Vieira, John Terry, David Wagner, the former Huddersfield manager. But Bournemouth feel that they are going to be able to get their man, and that is Thierry Henry.
Very interesting news there this morning. So we're going to be getting into that a little bit more with John Duggan later. Phil Egan, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Let's tell you what's coming up this morning on OTB AM at 7:48 this morning. We've got Daniel Harris standing by, and we'll be chatting to him in just a moment. The sports page is coming your way at 8:10. More on that Thierry Henry news that Phil Egan has just brought us. Mike Quirke then will be joining us at around 8:20 to talk about the life of an inter-county manager over the last month with the chopping and changing to the GAA season. John Duggan will be with us at 8:20 for Virtual Insanity. At Cheltenham then at 9 o'clock, Thom Malone has been breaking down week by week what we're looking at Cheltenham-wise over the course of the next month, and we continue that countdown after 9, and then television picks with Sur Murphy at 9:15 before we conclude with Padraig Harrington, who has been speaking to Off the Ball about contracting COVID over the last little while. Right, at 7:49 on this Thursday morning, delighted to welcome Daniel Harris. Morning, Daniel.
Hello.
Let's start with Manchester City. 10 points clear after that 3-1 win at Goodison Park last night. This thing is turning into a procession.
Yeah, it is. It's funny what's happened with City, really, because I said on here quite some time ago that Guardiola's kind of great team, the first great team of City, was finished. And that to me seemed like a fairly reasonable thing to say, because Vincent Kompany had left, then Sergio Aguero hardly ever plays now, and Fernandinho hardly ever plays now. And when you lose players of that quality, you have to replace them, and he hadn't really yet replaced them. They don't really have a reliable centre-forward. They haven't found someone like Fernandinho who can cover that space in front of the back four, make the right fouls at the right time. So it seemed like they needed to buy some players. But what has been surprising is how they've just rebuilt without doing that. And I think, and they've done it so quickly. And I think what's happened is that for the first time, Guardiola has 11 players who can play. He doesn't have any of this Otamendi, Mangala nonsense. He just has 11 excellent footballers. And when I say that, I include the goalkeeper, who is not the greatest at actually keeping goal, but he is a fantastic footballer. But within that, most importantly, he's got four defenders, but particularly the centre-backs who can actually defend. And because that's the case, it means that the 6 players in front of them, he can pick whichever 6 he fancies and put them in whichever positions he fancies, whether he plays Phil Foden on the right, on the left, number 10, false 9, Raheem Sterling can play on the right or on the left, Bernardo Silva can play in midfield, he can play on the wide, doesn't matter. And he can just pick 6 good footballers to go out there and be better at football than the other team. And the reason he can do that is because the defence is just defending sensibly. And Guardiola's never had that before. And I mean, he didn't have that when he was at Barcelona, when he had the greatest team that we've ever seen, probably. He didn't have 4 defenders who could all be relied upon to defend properly, to defend one-on-one. It didn't make any difference because you couldn't get them. You couldn't get the ball to get at them. But it's not possible to recreate the greatest midfield of all time that he had and Messi. So that's, in my opinion, the reason why there have been league titles that he hasn't won with City, why he hasn't won the European Cup, didn't win the European Cup with Bayern or with City. But because you can't, eventually you will be asked to defend. And a quality team will score goals against you if you don't have good defenders. But now he does have defenders. He's just defending sensibly. I don't think Kyle Walker is a brilliant defender. I don't think Joao Cancelo is a brilliant defender. But they're good enough defenders so that their ability on the ball is able to take over. And they got really lucky that they had that week off when they didn't play this Everton game that they were meant to play. And then the run that they went on, they played 7 of the bottom 9. Chelsea, when Frank Lampard was preparing to get fired, and Villa, a game that they basically had that ludicrous benefit of a decision. But you've still got to win those games. They use them to play their way into form. And now it's very hard to see a game that they're not going to win.
Are you concerned about them completely running away with it even again next season, just given the fact that they might go out and sign that number 9 that you talk about there?
No. I'm not worried about what's going to happen next season. I think the question this season is how many trophies they're going to win. It's not. The league is over. They're in the final of the League Cup where they've got to play Tottenham. You'd expect them to win that. In the Champions League, there would be 50-50 worst case scenario against anyone. I mean, I don't think they're unbeatable. Like, the defenders are good. They're not the greatest defenders we've ever seen, but they're competent, and that was all that you felt it would take for them to be a good bet against anyone. But it's going to depend who they play. I mean, they could lose to PSG, they could lose to Liverpool, they could lose to Bayern Munich in Europe, but they could also beat those teams. They could also avoid those teams. It's cup competition. But it is clear that everything is available. If they do go out and sign that striker, yeah, I mean, it depends who it is. I mean, obviously Mbappe and Haaland are the 2 strikers who any team would want, whether City are going to spend the money buying them, whether they're the kind of player that Pep Guardiola wants, whether they would leave to go to City, who knows? But yeah, they would improve with those players. But part of the reason it's working at City at the moment, I think, is because they don't have a focal point centre forward. They just have players that appear in those positions, which is making them really hard to mark. And it's enabling them to dominate teams in midfield because they've got an extra player, whether it's a fullback like Cancelo coming into midfield, or whether it's a player like Gabriel Jesus or Phil Foden or Sterling or Mahrez or whoever it is, they're playing centre forward, isn't playing up against the defenders in the way that a centre forward they might sign would like to.
Yeah, for sure. As a football lover, maybe not as a Manchester United fan as such here, but where do you want to see Erling Haaland and Kylian Mbappe end up?
I don't know. I mean, you kind of always feel that you don't want players as good as Mbappe to be kicking about at Paris Saint-Germain, playing in a league that Paris Saint-Germain win every season, apart from when Unai Emery is the manager, and hoping to get somewhere in the Champions League. So from a football lover's perspective, you would like Mbappe to just go to a competitive league. Haaland, I mean, I'm not sure what's going to happen with Haaland, but I think that as a Manchester United supporter, it would be bad news for him to turn up in the Premier League playing for anyone other than the team that you support, because he's just a goal machine. It reminds me a little bit of those two of when Van Nistelrooy and Henry were both in the Premier League, where you had just one absolute goal machine and another player who gives you a little bit more, but is maybe not quite as deadly in front of goal in the big moments. So, but is clearly a much purer footballer. And I think that's what we've got here, where you've got Haaland, who just, if you have him, it just means goals and goals and goals and goals. But Mbappe just gives you a little bit extra and something a little bit different, but probably not quite as many reliable goals just all the time against everyone.
Was there ever anything in that Haaland to Manchester United talk? I mean, the Solskjaer link is obviously a very obvious one.
Yeah, I mean, there seems to be. I'm sure United wanted him, and he decided against it. And my guess is that if Haaland is available this summer, then I'm sure United would like to buy him. Whether the board will release enough money to buy him is who knows. Because on the one hand, they did it for Pogba, because I think they felt that commercially Pogba would justify the fee in the amount of sponsorship he would bring to the club. They wouldn't pay the money for Jadon Sancho, who was also someone you thought commercially would probably be quite valuable, but they wouldn't pay the money for him. And in general, they've been looking at a net spend of about 60 million quid every summer, so they'd need to sell some players to get Haaland. But I'm sure they did try and buy Haaland the last time, and they might also decide that if Haaland can be bought, then that is just something that has to be done, because it immediately elevates your team to contenders for everything. And that is worth some money, so they might consider it worth that speculation. But signing Haaland is also contingent on perhaps Dortmund finishing outside the Champions League spots in Germany, which is possible, but him wanting to come. And that's going to depend on what offers he has. The Spanish clubs probably couldn't afford him. PSG probably wouldn't spend the money on him, which then might just bring it down to English clubs and then you're probably looking at City, do need a centre forward, but they might decide that the kind of football they play, Haaland is not quite their guy, even though he has goals, but they might decide that you have to be mad not to buy him. Chelsea probably could use him because he's better than what they've got, but they don't particularly need to go and spend their money on another forward. But again, they're just certain players that if they are available to you, then you have to do whatever it takes to buy them, and Haaland is definitely one of them.
Daniel, there's a few mentions of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and his future as Manchester United manager on the back pages this morning. Contract up in 2022, but I guess the narrative is often around his semi-final defeats with United last season. How much do you buy this idea that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer needs a trophy badly in order to secure his future with United? Because they have Real Sociedad in the Europa League tonight, and games like that take on extra importance. So do you buy this idea that even if they finish second in the Premier League this year behind an impressive Man City but don't win a trophy, that maybe his job could be at risk?
I don't think it will be that. No. If they finish second, but from here to there, that means that they'd probably amass quite a lot of points between now and then, and that would be a significant improvement. It wouldn't be where United want to be, but if you look at United's team now, you would say not good enough to win the league, good enough to win a cup competition. And you're not going to fire a manager for not winning a cup competition generally. I mean, because it's a cup competition, and it's understood that you're talking about one-off games, and when you're deciding whether you think that someone is the right man to take a club forward, winning or losing tight one-off games is generally not the way that you would look at it. So for me, I was pleased that Van Gaal got fired even though it was immediately after United won the Cup, because I couldn't see a route for the team that he was trying to build and the players that he had collected to take United to be anywhere where they want to be. And if you look at the squad now, Solskjaer is still undoing the mess that Van Gaal caused. Whereas looking at what Solskjaer's done, you mentioned the semi-finals. If you look at the semi-finals individually, even those, you can see progress through them. So the first one under him was the League Cup final against City, where they got absolutely outplayed at home in the first leg. We're lucky to still be in the tie. Won the second leg, but got outplayed in that as well, if we're being real. So that was a bad one. But then the one after that, the Cup semi-final against Chelsea, they were absolutely exhausted and chasing top four in the league. So you could make an excuse for them in that one too. Then the one after against Sevilla, they played really well. But that was some of the best football they've played under Solskjaer, some of the best football they've played since Fergie left, and one of the best games United have been involved in since Fergie left. And it, to me, looked like progress. At the key moments, the finishing and the defending weren't good enough, which brings us back to the need to sign a centre-forward or not, and to sign a centre-back or not. But they improved through that one. And then against City in the League Cup semi-final, that was a marginal game. City played really well that night, and United stayed with them. A little bit more composure and maturity in the final third. And United had some good situations, but they couldn't quite take advantage of them. And City got the first goal that was bundled in from a corner. So I would say that their ability to go into that game, and they didn't go toe-to-toe with City. It would be wrong to say that they did, but they competed in that game. That wasn't a mismatch. They weren't outclassed in that game. They were beaten by a better team playing really well. And the stretch now is to get to the point where they can either play not so well and still win, or produce their best performance and actually win. And against City, ultimately, City is still better than them. And if they have to play City in the FA Cup, then City are a better team. So you would say the likelihood was that City would win, but United would be good enough to beat them. The question is about are they keeping his job? Because if they collapse from now and they finish outside the top four, then it would be legitimate to say, thank you very much. Like, you've done a good job. You've taken a squad, a club that was absolutely on its arse and made it much better, but it needs someone to take it on from here. And that's, for me personally, when I've wanted rid of the managers who've succeeded Fergie, was when hope was lost, when I felt that these guys are not taking this team anywhere. I don't feel like that about Ole's team now. I can't deny that in the back of my head, I wonder what the best possible manager would be able to do with this team. But Ole has built this team. It's still improving. It's turning from a good team into a very good team. That's the next step. And however good the manager is, that is not going to be possible without a couple of players. The defenders are not good enough. And how it's possible that better coaches than the ones that Ole had would get them defending better. I don't know. I've never seen Ole coach. I've never seen his coaches coach. So gobbing off on the internet about what level of a coach he is, to me, sounds a bit silly. I can only see the things that I can see. And what I can see is a team that is still improving, but needs that extra little bit of gas and needs probably, for me anyway, it needs a number 6 midfield player. It needs a centre-back. And then if Erling Haaland is around, you buy him. But I think if Haaland is not available to United, they'll probably try and go one more season with Cavani and then hope that Mason Greenwood is ready to take on the majority of the goal-scoring burden the season after that.
Some United fans will have seen the Maurizio Pochettino getting a job as maybe a missed boat and a missed opportunity to bring in an established and a definitely successful manager. But if you're Ed Woodward at the moment, just to be clear, do you give Ole Gunnar Solskjaer a new contract, and if so, for how long?
You wait and see what happens at the end of the season. If they collapse, then I guess you probably don't. You get a new manager if they collapse between now and then, because this is Ole's team now. It's got enough good players so that collapsing should not happen. But so if they finish well, if they finish the season strongly, and if they keep producing their best, then you would say that he's earned the right to continue. You'd be also within your rights to harbour doubts about whether he was the man to take United the rest of the way. But ultimately, he's competing against Klopp and Guardiola, who are probably the best managers around. And it may well be that no manager available to United is able to build a team as good as their teams because they're the best. And Guardiola also has the most money. And competing against a coach as good as Pep Guardiola with the most money in the league, I mean, good luck with that. That's very difficult for anyone. Liverpool managed to do it because the signings that they made they basically hit the spot with a succession of signings, and Klopp's rabble-rousing genius elevated everything. And Ole is not a Klopp kind of personality, and he's not a Guardiola kind of tactician. He doesn't have Guardiola's kind of money, but then neither's Pochettino. Pochettino's best teams couldn't win leagues against Antonio Conte and Claudio Ranieri. So I think that Pochettino is an excellent manager. I think he did a brilliant job at Spurs, but I didn't feel that there was any kind of guarantee that if you gave him United's team and put him in against Klopp and Guardiola, you'd suddenly be celebrating league titles. I didn't see it like that, though I think Pochettino is good. So as long as I see Ole progressing, and to go back to the original question about the cups, a cup win will make a big difference because it makes a big difference mainly to the mentality of the team, to the mentality of the players, to know that they can win, to know that they can produce the big moments. But provided you see the team still improving and still able to perform at a high level, and I think we have seen that. We have seen that this team is capable of performing at a high level. A long time ago, beginning of the season, I think, you asked me what I thought United could do this season, and I said I thought that they were good enough to beat any team at any time. Now the Champions League has started up again, started to feel a bit frustrating because United threw qualification away. And I thought that it was more likely that they would do something in Europe than in the league because of what I said before, that they can beat anyone and it's a cup competition and you only have to produce on a few days. Whereas I didn't feel that they'd be capable of getting 90 points in the league. I thought if it was 82, 83 points, then they might be able to manage that. But it's now looking like it's going to be more than that. And I don't think they're good enough for that yet. But I do think they're at that level where they've got more than a puncher's chance against any team. So that was a massive oversight, getting knocked out of the Champions League in the way that they did. But they do look to have improved since then. Not enough, but they are getting better. And I mean, the thing that really it boils down to in that last game against Leipzig was that they picked the wrong team. He picked a really defensive team. He picked 5 at the back with Matic in front, and they struggled to get out, and they lost the game in the first 20 minutes. He hasn't done that in a big game since. So the hope is that he's learned, but I do think we're at the point now where Ole needs to be brave. He needs to accept which players are not going to take him where he needs to go. And I think he knows that. I don't think he thinks that David De Gea is the future of this team, but David De Gea has been letting him down for 2 years. Maybe maybe Dean Henderson isn't good enough to be a United goalkeeper, but at least we don't know. At least he tends not to toss them in quite the same way, and he tends to control his defence. So you wouldn't get a situation where you got against West Brom, where you got against Everton, where you're conceding goals because the defence is defending 5 yards too deep. Whatever you know about Dean Henderson, it's that he will be shouting at the defenders to get them up the pitch. He needs a better centre-back or a better centre-back pairing than Lindelof and Maguire. Eric Bailly can't be relied upon, so it's hard to pick him. So he needs to do something about that, and he needs to stop taking Mason Greenwood off and keeping Anthony Martial on, because again, Anthony Martial's got loads of talent. We've all seen it, but he's now at an age where the player that he is the player he's going to be. And there's going to be some good days, but he's also going to let you down on a lot of occasions. And the time has come the time came quite a while ago, actually, for Ole to be ruthless. Same with Fred. Fred doesn't make goals. He doesn't score goals. He's not a reliable passer. He can be good enough, but the majority of the time, he's not good enough. So again, Ole needs to take a view, and it's difficult this season because the games come so fast that he needs to keep rotating. So he needs to keep playing players that are not the future, but ultimately he needs to be brave with the teams that he picks. He needs to be ruthless with the players that aren't good enough. And if that's what happens, then I think there's a chance he can take this team on, and that's what I'd like to see in the next part of the season. Problem being that there are just so many games that you will be seeing players that you would prefer not to see.
Just lastly on Manchester United, Daniel, what are the excitement levels like for this Alex Ferguson documentary?
I have mixed feelings about this documentary, and I mean the reasons I have mixed feelings partly are extremely selfish reasons. I make films, and I'm insanely envious of people getting to make this film. So there is that. I would love to have made this film. I guess there's also a level of disappointment because I don't think that one film is enough. Like, he needs the Jordan treatment, and he needs the Jordan treatment from the best possible director. And in classic Fergie style, in the same way, there was a period where he was advising young players to sign with his son, because by amazing coincidence, he was the best manager around and his son was the best agent around. Now his son, by amazing coincidence, is the best film director around. And that is, I mean, they're a very talented family. I hope it's brilliant. I can't believe it will be as brilliant as it could have been and as it should have been with the best possible director. And I can't believe it will be as brilliant as it could have been and as it should have been if it was a multi-parter like Michael Jordan got. I think Fergie's story is probably a more interesting story than Michael Jordan, and Fergie is at least a more compelling interviewee than Michael Jordan. But I wonder, because the thing with Michael Jordan was that there was one moment where the interviewer, the director, had him rattled and had him emotional. And then the camera zooms in on him and I'm shouting at the screen, ask him another question. And anyone, if you've made a documentary, you know that you get to a point where you're starting to ask some awkward questions and the ones that your interviewee doesn't really want to answer and they're on the ropes. And you're always mindful of maintaining the relationship because you need them to feel comfortable with you and secure with you so that they will answer all the questions that you want to ask. But it gets to a point, and you usually save it till the last interview where you're like, okay, I'm tipping all my cards into the middle here, because if I ask this stuff and it makes you uncomfortable and you decide that you don't answer them, you know what, it doesn't matter because it's the end. And it felt like with the Jordan one, the director was either too much in his thrall so that he didn't want to ask those questions because he was just enjoying being with Jordan or was intimidated by Jordan, or he thought Jordan doesn't want to answer the question. But ultimately, Jordan had final cut on the doc. So if you ask him a question, he doesn't like the answer that he gave, he's going to say, no, I'm not doing it. But you ask that question, and then you ask another question, and then you ask another question, and you ask it in as many ways as you can until you get the best possible answers that you want. And it felt like in the Jordan doc, they didn't get that. Like, I loved all the old footage, but what was strange about the Jordan one also was that there was no context. Nothing about Chicago, nothing about what was going on in America. And again, I felt like I didn't come out of it with a better understanding of those things, or a better understanding of America, or a better understanding of basketball, really. Someone doesn't know that much about basketball, a little bit about triangle offense, and not very much else. So the Fergie one, I guess he will feel comfortable with his son, but his son won't ask any difficult questions. And Fergie went on. I don't imagine he's going to ask him any difficult questions about the Glazers or about pressuring young players to sign with his son, like in Michael Quirke's The Boss documentary and book, or about any of the financial chicanery. I mean, at a level, it's not that interesting. If I want a documentary about Alex Ferguson, I do think he should be made to answer for those things, but I want detail about football. I want detail about speeches that you made. I want loads of that. And you're not going to be able to do that to the degree that I would love to read about it in 2 hours or whatever it is. So, I mean, I'll watch it. I'm absolutely certain I will enjoy every single second of it. But I also think I'll be sitting there saying, ask another question, or ask this question, or make me another 73 parts for me to watch immediately, one after the other, without sleeping. Then, yeah, I'm sure it'll be great, but I'm sure it won't be a scintilla as great as it should have been.
Daniel, great stuff. Thanks a million.
Nice, guys. See you again. Have a good day, everyone.
Daniel Harris there on the line with us. It is 8:13 a.m. this morning. We got a packed show still to come on OTB AM. Sur Murphy joins us later to talk TV. We've got our Cheltenham countdown with Thom Malone. And up next, we're talking to GAA in 2021 with Laois football manager Mike Quirke.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
OTB Sports in your pocket. Listen to OTB Sports Radio 24/7.
Until that habit is broken, do you not realise how crazy those things were?
Watch your favourite OTB videos.
The benefit of being suspended, me and Scoresy were out every night, a couple of nights before the game.
Read all the latest sports news and opinions, all in one place, the OTB Sports app. Listen, watch, read, wherever Wherever you are, we're always with you. The OTB Sports app, available to download now from your app store.
Calling all builders, joiners, plasterers and dryliners. Need advice on the right materials for the job? Consider it done. You need them on site and in your hand. Consider it done. You want access to over 10,000 products from the leading construction brands without having to start up the van. Consider it done. There's another way of doing things. E-Tag. We talk with you to solve your problem and deliver what you need directly onto site. No second guessing, no seconds wasted. Click etag.ie.
Watson, you're welcome to Golf Weekly.
Hey, this is going to be fun.
Very happy to say European captain and of course three-time major winner Padraig Carrington joins us.
Today's special guest on Golf Weekly is Lee Westwood.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm honoured and delighted.
Let's bring in Paul Mcginley, who joins us now. Paul, you're very welcome.
Shane Lowry, how are you keeping?
I'm good, thanks, yeah. Well, I'm as good as I can be.
The biggest names in golf and Ireland's best golf podcast, Golf Weekly, now exclusively available on Patreon. Go to otbsports.com/Golf Weekly to sign up now.
Check out the Boyle Sports app today for details on which football match is getting the no-lose treatment this week. Plus, study the form with our Racing Post Spotlight before watching the action with free live streaming on all UK and Irish horse races. See the Boyle Sports app for full T's and C's. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie 18+.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
You're welcome back. It is 8:15, and I'm delighted to say that Mike Quirke, Laois manager and host of a brilliant new coaching podcast, is with us on the line. Mike, how are you getting on?
I'm good, Eoin. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. So the last month or so, I'd imagine, has been an interesting enough time to be an inter-county manager. Not a lot has happened, but I'd imagine there's been a lot of chopping and changing in terms of how you approach 2021.
Yeah, it has been interesting, and it's also probably been one of the least interesting ones because, plans get torn up and different things. But I suppose, like everybody during this pandemic, it's happened to all of us. But it's been a struggle. It's a struggle for the players really more than anybody else. Like, I mean, we'll adapt and move on, and sure, whatever happens. But it's just frustrating for people. It's frustrating for everybody, I know. But in the context that we're speaking about, players have put in a massive shift. Our fellas have probably done somewhere in the region of about 50 or 60 individual sessions, between now and the point that we exited the Leinster Championship to Dublin and have put a massive shift into that side of things. And now you just want to reward that by getting back in the field. And obviously, just for now, we can't get back there.
How soon after the Dublin game did you start doing individual training again?
They were anxious to start it pretty quickly, to be honest. They kind of had that drive themselves. They knew they had a little bit of work to do in different things, and they were really, just bursting to get back at it. And, the funny thing with this one, like we actually I wanted to shut it down for a while and just give fellas a break mentally as much as anything else from training. Not that we were putting massive demands on them or anything, but like it was the players that didn't want to shut it down because they found the training was giving them a positive kind of a focal point in the week, that if they were able to do a couple of sessions, that it was something, and they were logging it in and they were doing all this, that it was a focus for them more than anything else. And they were the ones that wanted to keep going and keep driving it, while maybe we were trying to say, look, maybe it'd be better to take a little break for a while just to refresh things. But so I think they've adapted fine. The players are good with it, but it's just that frustration, that lack of clarity and certainty about when and where we'll actually get back on the field.
I guess if that clarity had been given before the end of the year, that the GAA knew that they wouldn't be given that level 5 exemption, maybe players all around the country take a different attitude to it. They enjoy their Christmas a little bit more, and they realise that there's plenty of time in January and February and March to be training for the return of the leagues.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that took us all by surprise. Nobody was expecting that announcement when it came, that we hadn't been... that we had our level 5 or elite status had been revoked or whatever. But I suppose, look, when you look at the prevalence of the new variants of the virus, it's probably not altogether shocking that they want to keep things as quiet and as low traffic as possible. But I was just surprised that there hadn't been better communication in that sense, that there wasn't somebody from the government or from the GAA had picked up this information a little bit earlier and communicated it to us. And yeah, it would have made maybe a small difference to fellas. But either way, they're like everything on. We'll be guided by NEFIT and by the government in terms of what's best for public health. And there's nobody putting pressure on anybody to get back training. Like for us, obviously we're anxious to get back in the field, but I'm far more anxious that everybody's families stay safe, that, we don't go back training and we're not the cause of somebody bringing this into our household and a mom or dad or granddad or grandmom or somebody getting ill because of us. So look, whatever happens. But like everybody else, it's just that natural sense of frustration that it can't be now.
Mike, I know that it's a strange time for the players and your communication with the players will be different now than it ever was. But in terms of a strength and conditioning perspective, a lot of the players will be doing work at home, whether it's home gyms or a bit of running. And I know Tom Hargroves is heavily involved with the strength and conditioning with yourselves in Laois. Is it a case that yourself and Tom are in constant communication in terms of building, I guess, personalised training sessions for the players at the moment, or how does that work?
Yeah, very much. Tom is brilliant at what he does, and he's probably in more regular contact with the players than I am, and I'm talking to Tom every day. But it's just that idea of an individual development plan, really, that some guys needed to put on size, other guys needed to do other stuff, and everything is very individualised to what they do, what they needed to do. And like some guys have gone away, lads, like a couple of months ago, and bought their own weights and set up their own gym in their garage, and just done everything that they could possibly do to give themselves the best possible chance, and so I'm sure that's not unique to us, our fellas in Laois, but the players have put in a huge shift over this period of time, and look, it's just, the inter-county stuff is one thing, and you keep going down the line to the clubs and to the teenagers who are lacking that kind of, that focus, I suppose. Just the point that, we're training on Tuesday, we're training on Friday, we're training on Sunday, we've got a game, and that kind of positive focus that the whole country is missing, or the whole country that's involved in GAA and sport in general are lacking, I suppose.
You mentioned the teenagers there and the lack of focus and, I guess, outlet they have at the moment. Yeah. And, we had, I spoke to Hector O'Huckagon on the Sunday paper review, Sunday just gone there and off the ball. And, he was talking about the need for teenagers especially to have a voice at the moment. How they, I guess have a lot more screen time than they ever had at the moment, whether it's PlayStation or Xbox or their phone. And they need that outlet, and it's a touchy one and a difficult one, given that public health has to come first as well. Yeah. Where do you stand on that in the need for, I guess, young people and teenagers to have that voice and outlet at the moment?
Yeah, I think they do. Yeah, I think they absolutely do. And it's a kid. Look, I see my own kids are only 10, but it's harder now when the weather is like it is today. It's pouring rain. You don't want kids on screens. You don't want them, doing all these things. But like, for example, our own club now, the kids, the Cairns O'Reilly's, where my clubs play, my kids play. Like their coach set up these sessions that they have to do themselves, and they have to log in or not log in, but it's just kind of tick a box to say, yeah, we've it done, and that they have to go out and practice their skills and do different things. And it just gives them, okay, lads, look, and we're going to do this on Tuesday and Friday, and until we get back in the field altogether, that's what we're going to do. And I just think, look, everybody's not into sport, not everybody's not into GAA, but for the kids that are, I think it's a really positive thing to have that routine of knowing I'm going training, I'm going mixing with my mates. It's a positive thing. It's exercise, it's ball. It's very important for kids in their development. And I think, look, with the way schools are hopefully going to open up next month, it would be great that the GAA, if in particular, can lobby that those teenagers, those youths can eventually get back in the field in some way or shape, whether that's your non-contact pods of 15 or whatever way it is. But they need a voice, and it can't be just all about inter-county. Obviously, I'm speaking about that, but I'm obviously very conscious that all those people need an outlet as well.
Can I just ask, and it's something that's come up recently in terms of the GPA and helping GAA players with life outside of sport and outside of their inter-county careers, that Aaron Gillan was one of the 52 inter-county players to explore what the GPA is essentially offering in helping players with business development advice. And we saw with Cavan GAA recently as well, they had this live local, work local initiative where they want inter-county players to have jobs close by, that they don't have to go up to Dublin to get work and make things awkward for their inter-county careers and life after sport as well. So how has that changed in your view from even when you were a player, that maybe there's more awareness, even with maybe from your own examples within Laois, more awareness of the post-playing life for players?
Yeah, I think that's been a big development of all sport coaching this idea of taking a more holistic view of the player as a person first and a player second, as opposed to the other way around, which was probably the way it was for a long time in intercounty. It was about how much you could squeeze out of the player and how many games you could win and how successful you'd be. Whereas now I think that view it's starting to change. That's still very prevalent in a lot of places. But I wouldn't be to the forefront of knowing what the GPA are doing exactly. I know they have different courses, and we've been offered different courses, and players are getting more help with that idea of educating themselves and getting that business development and seeing what they want to do. And there is an awful lot more now being done for players in that regard, as opposed to 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I think you see that again. You see that all the way down the line where now coaches are starting to focus on the kids and that side of things outside of football. You saw the documentary about Paddy Christie in Ballymun and how he impacted the lives of those kids away from Gaelic football. And I think that idea is starting to transgress far more in all sports, where coaches are really looking at the whole person and seeing how they can help them, whether it's in school or with their exams or whatever stuff is going on in their lives, far more than just what they can do between the white lines. And I think that's a really important and positive place for sport to be going.
When did you realise that, Mike? Was there a moment in your own career when you thought to yourself, God, actually getting the most out of myself as a person is actually going to help me as a footballer or as a basketball player?
It was probably a slow burn, really, Eoin. You don't really think of it, when you're playing and you're in the middle of it. It's just when you probably get a little bit older and you start to look at guys and you say, like, yeah, this guy can perform really well in the field, but maybe he's got an awful lot of stuff going on in his life, or suddenly somebody tells you something that you saw a guy who was playing really well in the field, or maybe playing poorly, and then suddenly you get a phone call and he tells you that he's struggling with something, and that's incredibly kind of personal stuff, and that stuff does affect the outlook that you have on what you're doing. That you realize that it's not just about, and I'm not talking specifically about Laois. I'm talking about, like, I was involved with my own club and different things, but it's you start to appreciate really quickly that a lot of, when you're dealing with 40 or depending on how many people you have in your squad, how many players and what they're going on in their lives and what's happening with their girlfriends or their wives or their kids or their jobs, or and suddenly you start to realize that it's a lot more important than what you previously thought. What's happening outside the white lines is consuming far more of their lives than what's happening within the white lines, and I think you just develop that kind of awareness, I suppose, for it the more you're doing it.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the podcast, Mike. The Mike Quirke podcast, for anybody who hasn't heard about it, all proceeds.
Very original name.
It's as I say, all proceeds to Temple Street, and it's a brilliant guest so far, Mike. Jason Sherlock, one of your most recent ones, and one of the things that actually struck me was just because you had a guest like that on, like, is there a culture you find within the GAA and within Irish sport that people share their expertise, that people are willing to talk to other coaches and be like, here's what I think works, and here's how you might be able to get the best out of your set of players or whatever situation you're in?
No, I don't. That's one of the reasons, Eoin. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to do it. Obviously the Temple Street one was the main one because, I would have had a kid up there for a couple of weeks, and I've seen the incredible work that they do. And then I also felt, look, you know what, like this coaching thing, we're not going to be back on the field anytime soon. Coaches are all at a loose end. There was some of them contacting me asking for different bits and pieces. So I thought it might be a nice idea to try and tap into some of these people. And like, that idea of sharing on, coaches can be really insular and protective of their own knowledge and feel that if I do give away too much, that it's going to harm me in the under 12 county championship next year or something, and I just wanted to try and I wanted to, like someone like Jason Sherlock or Bernard Jackman and all these guys, like when you actually tap into them and you ask them, would you mind coming on and sharing your knowledge, and then there's no problem. But people don't want to, people certainly are going to volunteer that kind of stuff, and I just think it's really good for coaches. You listen to the Jason Sherlock one and you hear, him talk about his views on coaching, his philosophy and how they develop their players. And like, that's really powerful for a guy who's, been coached Dublin for five All-Irelands in a row and been so important to Jim Gavin and that Dublin team. And it's great to hear him being so open and honest about the stuff that they did. So, I think if you ask them, I think you need to ask people, and sometimes they need a little bit of a push. But I think if you do, that idea of coaches sharing information now is something that's becoming a little more obvious than it was.
Yeah, it does seem like a very Irish thing to try and prize information away from somebody or not share it. And It doesn't seem that this is just at coaching level either, Mike. It's been something that's been spoken about quite a bit when it comes to administration of the GAA, about how there is this machine operating so efficiently in Dublin, and maybe a little bit of that expertise being shared around the country mightn't be a bad thing. Like, is that also the case, I wonder, like when it comes to the county board level, not in any specific county here, but all around the country, where perhaps a few more conversations with other sporting organisations or other county boards could be encouraged to ensure that people are getting the best out of their own counties?
But you're like, what are you going to lose from doing it? You know, how are you going to lose out? I mean, like the worst thing that was going to happen to me when I started the podcast was people were saying, no, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to do it, or, you know, whereas the positive side of it is, okay, no, I'm picking up stuff from Bernard Jackman, I'm picking up stuff from Jason Sherlock or Russ or whoever it is I'm talking to. Like, it might only be a small little nugget, but then it might affect the way I talk to one player or two players, or affect what I do with the whole group. And from your question, if you're talking about that at a bigger level, a county board level, or, you know, where we're learning from the best that do it here, let's if it's a rugby or if it's Dublin or if it's whoever it is, now suddenly we're starting to do stuff that the best teams are doing, or the best counties are doing, or the other sports are doing. And look, you're always, from every conversation, you're going to pick up something. And I think that culture of hoarding information or keep it quiet to ourselves, lads, it's a very Irish thing to do. But whereas if you go to, like, if I call an American coach now or somebody, like I won't be able to stop them talking. Like, you know, I spoke to the guy, I haven't put it out yet, but I spoke to a guy in this for the podcast, a guy by the name of Nick Potter. He's the head of sports development at Duke University men's basketball, working with Coach K, like one of the most successful college coach of all time. I couldn't get this fella off the thing. Like, he's talking about basketball, talking about Zion Williamson, talking about Jason Tatum, talking about the specifics of what they're doing inside. I'm blown away, and this guy won't stop telling me about it, you know. Whereas I could call a coach up the road and he might be like, no, I'm not gonna tell you what I do with my football session or my hurling. You know, it's an Irish thing. But thankfully, I think it's starting to be eroded a small little bit, and people see the value of coaching and spreading that knowledge to everybody, so that you can affect as many kids as possible to stay playing the game and get a positive experience out of sport, which is all we all want, I suppose, really.
Is your sense then that in your current role as Laois manager, that is being replicated in your own county and in all the other counties in Leinster, to try and bring the level of standard up everywhere? Because it is an unavoidable conversation when it comes to Laois, when it comes to any of those counties, that the Leinster Championship has been dominated over the last 10 years and beyond. Do you feel that you're going in the right direction, and that the province in general has the resources it needs and the help it needs?
It's about three different questions there. Now, do I think that we're going in the right direction? I do. I think we're, from a playing point of view, I'm really pleased with the group that we have now, and that we'll have consistency from the group that we had last year to this year. Whereas the previous year, when I joined, we had a huge turnover of players and different things. Whereas now, I'm really happy with the group that we have, because we haven't lost anybody and we've gained a couple of players, and we're really, really pleased with that. And I'm absolutely delighted with the way that they've worked in the period since we were beaten by Dublin. So yeah, I think we're really going in the right direction. I'm delighted with the backroom group and everybody that we have there. And then on the bigger one, in terms of, are the Leinster Council doing enough? I don't really know. Like, there's obviously the votes that've been deferred in terms of the structure of the championships, which counties will have an opportunity to vote on, whether it goes to, you know, the championship as a league or whatever. I think those things would be positive changes for the association in terms of the structure. I think either of those options, you know, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but I think either of those options would be a positive change from what we have at the moment. So I think we probably need to get there and change it up and shake it up. But you know, that'll come. I think they're not going to vote on those things until they can all be in a room. But that's an important change for us. I think it has to go that way, and either the provincials move, or we put a little bit more, you know, emphasis on this Tailteann Cup, which is one of the things that you're talking about as well, where they have a chance to get back up or join a division. And we need to do something in that regard. But that's a long conversation.
Mike, that's fascinating what you said there about the Irish and American psyche, the differences between them in terms of coaching. And it strikes me that on the podcast, you know, you've spoken to people from different sports. You mentioned Jason Sherlock. You mentioned the coach from Duke University in basketball, Bernard Jackman from rugby. I know you spoke to David Power from the Tralee Golf Links as well. Across all these sports, have you noticed a common trend, a common personality trait maybe between all top coaches in different sports? Is it they share more similarities than differences, I guess?
The most common thing, Shane, is that they speak about people rather than the players first, that they all have that emphasis on developing the whole person as opposed to the player. And I know to some people that might sound a bit waffly and a bit I don't know, snowflakey or whatever, but like that's the reality of where coaching is going, and the people that are really, really good about it, understand that what's happening here is bigger than what they produce during a game or a training session. And then it's how you can marry that and develop their motivation for the game by setting up your sessions, by playing games as opposed to doing drills, by involving them in the process, by talking to them, asking questions, by leaving them direct the whole thing as opposed to being dictating to them, and all that stuff comes from a little bit of knowledge and understanding that if you really want to satisfy their motivation and you want to get the most out of them, then you really have to involve them in the process. Whereas before, coaching was all about listening to the guy in the middle blowing a whistle and shouting and dictating and telling everybody what's happening. And that's changing. That's changing now to be more inclusive and more involved kind of process that the players are more than stuck into.
Can I just ask you, Mike, a lot of people, when they think about Laois football, they immediately think of Ross Mcginley. And he's mentioned quite recently that he intends to play on for another year. I think it would be his 19th inter-county season with Laois. He turned 38 in December. He's second only behind Stephen Cluxton for longest serving inter-county current players, which isn't a bad company to be in. Maybe just give us a word on how important a figure Ross has been to Laois football and how important a figure he continues to be, I guess, as an influence to the younger players on your panel.
Yeah, I suppose in terms of Laois football, he's iconic. He's like it's unheard of for him to do what he's doing as an outfield player, and he wouldn't appreciate that kind of talk, or he doesn't focus on his age, don't do anything. And the best thing I could tell you about Ross Mcginley right now is we're running these time trials basically, so that they have to cover a certain distance in whatever, and Ross is in the top 3 or 4 or 5 guys that ran that time, or that ran that distance. So he's not there because because he's been there so long and he's a legend or whatever. He's there because he's putting in a massive effort. He does everything that you ask of him and more. And to that point, he's a good example to the guys that are there, below him, that are coming after him. So that the newer forwards, the Mark Barrys and Dermot Whelans and these younger guys that are coming up the stream. And that's what you want. You want that kind of leadership to show this is how you do it, lads. This is where you stay after training. You work on your kicking, you work on your runs, you work on your winning a mark. You do all that stuff, and that's how you get to be as long. But you don't get to play that long without putting in a massive, dedication to your body and minding yourself and your flexibility and your and doing all that. You don't get to. It doesn't happen. Like, injuries stop you long before you get to 19 seasons is insane, But so yeah, it's just not a case of him being there because of what he did. He's there because he's putting in a huge effort and making sure he's still up near the top of the tree.
Just to mention again that you can check out Mike on Twitter. The Mike Quirke podcast is live now, and any donations for the pod goes to Temple Street, and it sounds like there's some brilliant episodes coming up as well. Congratulations on all that, Mike, and best of luck over the next couple of months. Appreciate taking the call.
No hassle, guys. Okay, mind yourselves.
Mike Quirke there, Laois manager and former Kerry footballer, on the line. It is 8:37 on this Thursday morning. Coming up on OTB Sports Radio today from 10:30, the Six Nations show with Neil is live. From midday then, It's Not a Sport, focuses on skateboarding. From 1 o'clock then, OTB Gold is that Michael Rasmussen interview with Joe on doping a couple of years ago, and the State of the Union with Jerome Garces and John Lacey from 3. At 4 p.m. then, it is a retro panel preparing for the ring, and 6 p.m. is OTB Gold with Luke Keeney. Off the Ball live then from 7 p.m. as it is every single weekday. John Duggan, good morning.
Owen and Shane, good morning.
I'm not sure where to start here this morning. I might just put one thing to you before we get into the bulletin. The stories regarding Harry Kane. It feels like there's been a bit of Tottenham speculation every single morning in the papers. This morning, I think it's the back of the Irish Daily Mail carrying the story that £150 million will be enough to prize him away from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Are you worried?
Not really. I was a little bit detached at the moment from being completely obsessed with Spurs. I think sometimes support does go in waves. So when you're reaching Champions League finals, you're absolutely at the very peak of your obsession. And when you're stagnating, as they are at the moment, given they were top of the league before Christmas, you do get into that feeling of, well, it's just been like being a Spurs fan. So in the whole of the 1990s, Spurs were a very, very average football club. They won a League Cup in 1999. And there was years in those years when your support is at a low level. You're still obviously very interested, but your complete obsession and your complete excitement and belief in something that's really going to happen is at a low level. And at the moment, I'm just getting into the feeling that it's just been like those old days again. And whatever happens this season, we win the League Cup, great. But if Kane leaves, if Son leaves, I'm almost whatever. I've got in Jose Mourinho, and the whole thing has turned me into a bit of a whatever mood at the moment. So there could be speculation every day. Look, Daniel Levy, if Harry Kane is sold, and he is, 28 years of age this year, if he is sold, they'll get an astronomical price from him, because a lot of clubs want number 9s, although Cavani's doing quite well in Man United at the moment, but City might want him. He might think to himself, you know what, I want to win a trophy of significance, a league title or a Champions League somewhere. This is my chance to move. And maybe they will get the right price for him. Spurs have suffered more than any other club with the fact that they put £1 billion into that stadium and they're not getting any gate receipts for it at the moment, and all the other issues around like American football and commercial deals. So they are really suffering financially. I think the club is in a stable footing in terms of its ownership, but I wouldn't be surprised if they sold him. They did sell Bale. They got 7 players in, as we spoke about yesterday. So am I worried? If it happens, it happens. I've got to the stage now, lads, where I'm just the hope has been extinguished. The hope that was there for quite a long time has kind of gone back to the way it was.
John, I don't want to accuse you ever of being a fair weather supporter, but that appears to be where your psyche is at the moment with Tottenham. That
I'm not a fair weather supporter.
You're not.
I think if you saw the amount of memorabilia and going back 35 years, it's not. I wouldn't say it's fair weather. I would say it's apathy, based on the fact that you've been disappointed so many times, and you have to almost put yourself in a protective shell. That's the way I would describe it, because otherwise you're going to go completely insane. And you're happy to go insane if you're actually challenging for things, but there's no point going insane if you're 9th in the Premier League table and you're losing run-of-the-mill matches, or you're losing to Wolfsburger of Austria in the Europa League tonight. So what you want to see is a degree of progress and hope. And if the hope isn't there at the moment, there's no point in beating yourself up about it. So you do have to have a little bit of detachment, and that's the psyche I have at the moment.
It's like not watching the 6-1 news because you don't want to make yourself sad. So when Tottenham are playing, you just switch it off.
I don't switch it off. I'll still watch it. Like, I'm watching every game, but I'm not throwing the TV out the window, which I would have been doing quite a lot before Christmas, when we were blowing leads, when we were like close to the top of the table. So now it's gone back to the 90s feeling. Doesn't mean I love them any less, but I'm just protecting myself from not getting too disappointed.
We're going to get into virtual insanity in just a moment, John, but first of all, let's get into what's happening in the world of sport.
Yeah, well, Naomi Osaka has beaten Serena Williams 6-3, 6-4 to reach the Australian Open ladies singles final in Melbourne. So Osaka's never lost a slam final. She'll now play Jennifer Brady of the USA in the decider. Later this morning in the men's singles, Novak Djokovic continues his quest for an 18th Grand Slam title against the Russian qualifier Aslan Karatsev. So Djokovic completely a hot favourite for that one. Manchester City now 17 wins in all competitions. 3-1 victory over Everton last night in the Premier League to go 10 points clear. Elsewhere, Burnley and Fulham drew 1-1. In the Champions League, Porto beat Juventus 2-1 in their last 16 first leg tie. Borussia Dortmund 3-2 winners away to Sevilla. In the Europa League this evening, Manchester United, Arsenal and Spurs all playing their last 32 first leg ties at neutral venues. So United in Turin to take on Real Sociedad, Arsenal in Rome to meet Benfica, and Spurs in Budapest, as we said there, to take on the Austrians of Wolfsburger. Leicester City's game against Slavia is in Prague, in the Czech capital. Our Rangers are in Belgium to take on Antwerp. So Padraig Harrington and Rory Mcilroy in action later at the Genesis Invitational on the PGA Tour in California. In rugby, it's reported Keith Earls has been offered a new one-year deal with Munster and the IRFU. So the Irish Times claim that captain Johnny Sexton and Leinster teammate Cian Healy are also set to agree fresh one-year deals. Peter O'Mahony, CJ Stander, Ian Henderson and Tadhg Furlong believed to be close to finalising negotiations around two-year deals. And racing lads today is at Clonmel. They're first off there, 145.
All right, John, we're getting into virtual insanity. last week at Pebble Beach. Tell us what happened first of all.
Well, we tipped 5 golfers. Maverick Mcginley was second, one of our recommendations at 80 to 1. Max Homa, another of our recommendations, was tied for 7th at 33 to 1. So in 6 weeks of this in 2021, we've had 3 second places. A lot of close but no cigar memes gone around, a lot of gifs, a lot of frustration, but in a really positive way. And I really feel that a win is around the corner. Very slight loss on the year so far, virtually. But I do feel that I'm seeing things that possibly wouldn't have been seen last year because I'm watching golf every Sunday night. So I'm confident that wins will come and profit will accrue. So I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Genesis Invitational this week. This is your opportunity to shine. This is a time when that pot becomes well into the positives this weekend. You're confident this weekend? I am confident that Rory Mcilroy will win. He's 12 to 1. I think that's a good price. Last year I tipped him in this. He was 7.5 to 1. Rory Mcilroy remains the most talented player in the game, in my view. He can be streaky in terms of wins. He's probably been disappointing in his major return. He hasn't won a major since 2014, but he hasn't won on tour as well since November 2019. But he's been playing very well. Like he's shown glimpses already this season that he has it, that he has the natural game in Abu Dhabi and in the last round in Phoenix on his last appearance on the tour. He's not missing cuts. He's thereabouts. Sometimes he backdoors into top 10s. But a 12 to 1 to finish in the top 8, a fifth of the odds. I think Rory Mcilroy, at a course where he was in contention last year until a triple bogey, and the year before he shot a 63. So he likes Riviera, where the Genesis Invitational has been played this week. I think Rory Mcilroy is too good not to win regularly on the tour, and I think he will win this week, and he's 12 to 1. So he's the headline tip for 4 each way. You can check out all these bets on otbsports.com and on the OTB app. The other ones, Tony Finau is the guy I think who's just going to pulverise the field one week. He's been 36 times in the top 10 on the PGA Tour. He was second in this tournament 3 years ago. He was second at the Farmers Insurance Open on his last PGA Tour start. He was second in Saudi Arabia on the European Tour recently. He's got a great ball striking game. He's got good temperament, and the win just needs to happen for Tony Finau. He's 25 to 1. He's a 2 each way recommendation. Charles Schwartzel. I backed to myself last night, so I actually put real money on this at 250 to 1 for Charles Schwartzel. Is a South African major winner, won the Masters a decade ago, so he's a major champion. He's won 15 times around the world. He is not as good as he was, potentially, but I don't think he's lost the plot either. He was twice in the top 5 last year. In this tournament in the past, he's been in the top 5 twice. He finished with the 68 at Torrey Pines. I noticed that he was in the top 20, not in the tournament before last. I think Charles Schwartzel, who's got a crisp iron game, at 250 to 1 is completely overpriced for the Genesis Invitational. And there's a couple of lads, you know, Victor Hovland, or, you know, you see players like Colin Morikawa coming out of the amateur ranks, or even John Rahm, and then dominating and winning majors. And Morikawa has done that. Rahm and Hovland have yet to, but they probably will. Well, in 2017, 4 years ago, Doc Redman beat Doug Ghim, both Americans, in the final of the US Amateur. And Doug Ghim has been playing very well on the US Tour. Now he's got his card 6 times in the top 25. He had shot a 68 last week at Pebble Beach, Doug Ghim. And those good feelings around Riviera could propel Doug Ghim and Doc Redmond to contend this week. Ghim is 200 to 1 for €1 each way. Redmond is 225 to 1 for €1 each way. Both good ball strikers, both young lads. Redmond has finished in the top 5 3 times since last August. I think these guys could be completely overpriced. I'm expecting with 8 of the world's top 10 in this event, a marquee name, a Dustin Johnson, a Justin Thomas, a Patrick Cantlay, a Rory Mcilroy will probably win it, but these guys could give you each way value. So that's why the strategy is Rory's the main man. I think he will win this week, but I'm looking at other players at decent prices maybe to fill the frame. Right, so just to recap then, you are looking at Doc Redmond, you're looking at Doug Ghim, Charles Schwartzel, Tony Finau, and Rory Mcilroy, who is your €4 on the each-way favourite at 12 to 1.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a big weekend, John. I'm feeling at otbsports.com if you want to check out those tips in full. It's going to be a big... Sorry, go for it, John.
I'm feeling it, and I'm feeling that you have these things from your past when you had like near misses and you kick yourself. Why didn't I do that? And there's so many of those in my betting career for 25 years. But in 2007, Michael Thompson finished runner-up at the US Amateur at Olympic Club in San Francisco. 5 years later at the US Open, he was the first-round leader. And I was going to back him and I didn't do it. I was really annoyed about it. So I've actually recommended as a bonus on the article today, which you can check out, that Gim and Redmond, I backed them for €1 each way for first round leader bet as well. Top 8 places. Gim is 80-1, Redmond is 100-1. So just let you know that as well.
It's a big weekend on OTB as well, John. Yourself and Sheahan have been putting together a magisterial Saturday panel. Talk us through it, lads.
It's the football commentators. Sheahan, you can take it away.
Yeah, well, I guess in the idea, we all get nostalgic talking about commentators and talking with commentators. And 3 big names from the world of football commentary. So Barry Davies, of course, John Champion, and George Hamilton. So 3 guys who together, I think, will share a lot of good stories and anecdotes. And I mean, as soon as you hear George Hamilton's, a nation holds its breath before that David O'Leary penalty, and Barry Davies' iconic commentary, just look at his face. So many moments that bring you immediately back. I mean, I'm reminded when I was putting this panel together, I was reminded of sitting down with Clive Tilsley a couple of years ago in Reading, and you get that buzz when you're speaking to someone and you hear that voice. That the voice that as a kid I rolled around in my living room floor with Dad after Sheringham and Solskjaer scored. That just before Sheringham got the equaliser, my dad said to me in the living room, he said, "Don't worry, Shane, Man United always score." And seconds later, Clive Tilsley said, "Can Manchester United score? They always score." And I looked at my dad like he was some sort of demigod. Clive Tilsley said this seconds later. And it's that kind of feeling that you keep with you through the years, that, an iconic commentator like Clive Tilsley, those words stick with you forever. Manchester United have reached the promised land. So many iconic things he said on that night alone, even for Liverpool fans in Istanbul. Hello, hello. 2 just very simple words after Liverpool pulled one back and made it 3-1. So it just got me thinking. And I think with John speaking to these 3 lads on the Saturday panel, Barry Davies, John Champion and George Hamilton, it could be a goldmine for stories, I think. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. And George Hamilton really, and Barry Davies and John Champion, they're parts of your childhood and your as you grow up and being a football fan, and they provided the colour to match your excitement, hand in glove, as I would say. Barry Davies, like when Cantona scored in the '96 FA Cup final, or Pat Bonner when Packy Bonner made that mistake at the World Cup in 1994, or Francis for Nottingham Forest. Look at his face, as Shane was saying there, or like, where were the Germans? Who cares? It was from the Olympic Games, and he did many Olympic Games. Barry Davies, he did like figure skating, tennis. He did the whole shebang of sports commentary. And George Hamilton, like from Stuttgart to Genoa to the Giant Stadium, Ray Houghton, all those things, they just come to like your mind. They're just like locked into your mind somewhere. And then John Champion ending up like doing Pro Evo soccer, and like the differences between how do you do computer game commentary. What's the kind of the mechanism behind that, and how does that get put together, which is always fascinating. Are you in a cubicle somewhere and just repeating the same thing 100 times, or is it more fun than that? So it'd be just great to see. And what I'm really interested to find out is the characters they met along the way, and also the mad places and mad stories, because you always hear of technical problems, or problems with visas, or like probably going to strange countries and having issues. So they're the kind of things I'll be interested to see what's behind the curtain in terms of our commentators. Is Barry Davies the one that you remember from your childhood the most, or who was the sound of your childhood? John Motson was the sound of my childhood, because he loved his voice, loved his enthusiasm and his passion, and but it was Motson and Davies really. Brian Moore, I was more a BBC guy than an ITV guy, but it was Motson and Davies. And the great thing with the BBC, the clever strategic decision, because these guys are very, very much different in style. Motson was kind of punchy, enthusiastic guy from the terraces, and Barry Davies a bit more reserved, a bit more considered in the way he would let the pictures do the talking sometimes. When Gareth Southgate, for example, missed the penalty in 1996, he just goes, "Oh no!" That's all he needed to say, really. And sometimes that is the way commentary should be done, where you let the pictures do the talking. Radio and TV commentary is still very, very different disciplines. George Hamilton would have been on the radio, has done rugby, for example. But I think sometimes it is about capturing that moment in the one line, just as Jimmy McGee did with Different Class, says it twice in Maradona's run, a game that Barry Davies also did.
And pure football genius is what he said after Maradona scored, because he wanted to kind of highlight the fact that the first goal was not really legitimate. So you have to say that's magnificent. It's funny because these things are just in any like sports fans person's brain. They're just lodged in there, like just as much as you would think so with Jimmy McGee, or with the way he finished the '84 silver medal of John Tracy by going through every single person who won a medal for Ireland. So these things are lodged in football-wise, and it's up for grabs now from Brian Moore. It's just lodged in my mind for Michael Thomas '89. So I'm sure the same is for Martin Tyler and Aguero's goal. So that's the quality and that's the talent and the skill of these guys, which is very, very hard skill to perfect, and that's why they're very unique and special people.
It's their background as well. Sorry, Eoin, to interrupt. I mean, it's the background which makes them interesting characters as well. They're not just football people. John mentioned the fact that, Barry Davies has covered Olympics, he's covered boat races between Cambridge and Oxford, he's covered Wimbledon tennis for decades before he retired. And like George Hamilton has a classical music show on Lyric every single weekend, and had a really interesting music background. Barry Davies had a background in medicine. He studied in King's College. And then you have someone like John Champion, who at the moment, by the way, the reviews between himself and Ali McCoist, they've struck up a really, really good commentating, friendship on the airwaves. And he's doing a lot of work in America at the moment, John Champion. But they all are such interesting background characters. And I think that shines through in their commentary as well, that these background stories and what made them. George Hamilton growing up in Belfast as well during the Troubles, I'm sure shaped him. He had a health scare as well around 10 years ago. So I think it's interesting to get behind as John mentioned, get behind the curtain, see how they prepare for matches, but also get an insight into the people as well, because you switch on the match and for 90 minutes, their voice takes us on a journey through the game, but we never really get to hear about those guys as well. So I think that's an interesting thing that hopefully we'll find out more about on the Saturday panel this weekend.
Those guys who get the video game gigs are the ones whose legacies are most secure, I would say. John Watson is the sound of your childhood, John. He's the sound of my childhood as well. The first FIFA game I had, John Watson was a commentator. So like that is one hell of a legacy. And seriously, like that is how that's how most people actually nowadays actually come to football, really, and really get in depth into knowing the players and knowing the information surrounding the sport. So to have those commentators in that legacy is something special.
That'll be the same with me and David Ferrity with Tiger Woods PGA Tour. All those phrases, well, that looks like a fried egg in the bunker or whatever, or it's in the hole. So it's weird, isn't it? And maybe that is a reflection of the fact that we didn't have really interesting lives when we were younger.
That's very true. John, one last one before we let you go. Trevor Noonan has been in touch with a question about virtual insanity. Oh. He says there's been an equipment change for Rory this weekend. Would that alter your opinion slightly?
It depends what it is. I know he's been using a kind of a little machine and that kind of thing. But no. I know he's trying to kind of fix things on his plane. But no, Rory... like John Rams changed his clubs at the start of the year and still contended in the first tournament in Hawaii. So you just have to go with it. I think there's so much of this goes on in golf with a lot of players that sometimes you can get caught up on, well, if you change this, if you change that, should that put me off? And then they can go and win. So I'm sure he wouldn't be, teeing it up if he didn't think he was going to give it everything. So that's what they use the rest of their time for. And he's had a week off. He didn't play last week. So I'm hoping, Trevor, that Rory is geared and primed to win this weekend.
Yeah, I think he's actually just ordered a lot of shafts, and that has ended up going viral. So that is where that's coming from. John, good stuff.
All right,
Thanks a million.
Cheers.
Just a reminder that episode 2 of the Six Nations show is live at 10:30 this morning across the OTB channels. You can get it on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or on the OTB Sports app. Johnny Murphy and Alison Miller will be alongside Neil Tracy for that, and they'll be talking about Ireland's problems, the Welsh resurgence, and they'll be doing a bit of a Lions watch as well. Right, we'll be back very shortly with Thom Malone, but first of all, Lou Mccarry joined the football show last night for a conversation that you really need to check out. Here he is explaining how Dublin inspired him to help the homeless.
I knew it wouldn't have been right to turn the page without trying to do something about it. And I thought, Joe, I've not done a great deal in my life to help other people because everything's been for me. I've had great football clubs. I'd been to Dublin plenty of times as well to work for yourselves and other people. And I'd been to the I think it's Capuchin Day Centre it was called.
Yeah.
I think it will still be there. And of course, that was and brother Kevin was in charge at the time. I don't know if he's still there. And I used to see people queuing round the street to come in for their lunch, and I used to go in with them and sit there with brother Kevin and thought, bloody hell, I've never known this was going on in the world. People begging for food, desperate for food. So it all really started for me in Dublin, because I didn't see a lot of homeless people over my football career in Stoke-on-Trent, where I live. But after the football career had gone into management and doing television especially, I'd been to Dublin. As I say, I'd stayed in a nice hotel in the main street in Dublin, and just round the corner was, I think it was Bow Street, B-O-W Street, Bow Street, where this Capuchin Day Centre was, and I used to see what was happening there, and that was the first indication I had to the less fortunate people, not just in Stoke-on-Trent, but in the world. So given an opportunity which I knew I could do, and I knew I could feed people, Joe, and I knew I could get clothes for them, and I knew I could put the roof over their head, I simply decided, well, I'm going to do it. And 4 years ago, I set off to achieve that. We did achieve it, and 4 years later...
still going.
We're still going.
Yeah.
Mccarry interview on podcast in OTB Football or on the Off the Ball YouTube channel as well. Right, it is 9:01. We've got plenty lined up in the next hour. We'll be bringing you Padraig Harrington talking about life in the US and dealing with his positive COVID diagnosis. There's TV with Sue and racing with Thom Malone. But first, we want to let you know that the best golf podcast on the planet is on the move. For March the 11th, Golf Weekly is moving to Patreon. If you sign up, you'll get a guaranteed podcast every Thursday and extra episodes around the biggest tournaments of the year. And there'll also be interviews with golf's biggest names. You'll also become an official friend of the pod. You'll be able to chat to the lads, Joe, Nathan, Peter, Fionn, and get invites to our golf days and enjoy exclusive watch parties around the majors. Get on to otbsports.com/Golf Weekly and sign up now for $3.99 a month, or just search Golf Weekly on patreon.com. And the page is live now. Go check it out, because it's where you'll get some of our best stuff on OTB, including Conor Moore. Take it away.
The first time ever I warmed up. So I was like chipping and I was like putting, so I had nothing else to do for an hour and a half. And my brother actually went in for the cure. I think he had 2 Heinekens. He played terrible when he went there. But I ended up shooting the lights. I had a 68, an 86, which was my best score at the time. So I had a 66 net. And I was leading qualifier going in, and I was playing against all these guys that have been trying to win this for years. And I was telling Tiger this, because he was asking, do you play much golf? And I was telling him about the captain's prize or whatever. So all week, my driving was pretty bad, but my putting was great. And all week I was like, if I get the driving right, like, I'll murder these boys. I was like, I'm off 20. Like, so I stand up in the tee box, and I'm saying to myself, if I stand out in front of people all the time and all that, like, pressure, what pressure? So I get up the tee box and I drive it smack right down the middle. And my outlet has to be impartial. He's like, oh, best of luck. And he's there when I'm walking off, he's like, come on out, do it, you know? So it goes down the middle, and I pitch onto the green, and I'm about 14 feet above the pin, downhill putt. And I stand up, and I actually was walking to the green, and in my head I was like, what will I say tonight now for my speech? I was looking at the 2 lads I was playing with, like, and there were 2 like former captains and stuff, and I was like, I'm gonna murder these boys. I was like, you know. And then all of a sudden, I hit I don't know what it was, but I stood up in the tee, and I was grand. And when I stood up in the tee, or not the tee, sorry, on the green, and I grabbed the club, my hands were like this. And I was kind of going, like, what is wrong with you? I was like, you know, I don't care. I'm not a golfer. I'm just here having a crack. So all of a sudden, I hit this putt. It goes about 4 feet in front of me, another 4 feet, and then it rims the hole and goes in for a 3 putt. So the second hole comes up, I 3 putt that again. And I was telling Tiger this, and I was like... And
in this kind of detail?
Oh, yeah, no, we were there all day. Sure, yeah. We were there. What else would he be doing? But I was like, so I had this 3 putt, and I was like, I lost it. And he's like, dude, it can happen. You know, first club championship, and, you know...
Of a championship.
He's like, you know, get nervous, and that'll happen, you know? But, you know, experience, and you'll be good. I was like, yeah, I lost it by 3 shots. He goes, oh. And I was like, I had 9 3 putts and a 4 putt, and he goes, fuck, that's a lot of putts. And literally, my brother was there. My brother's always telling that story, and he's like, I swear to God, boys, Tiger was disgusting.
Conor Moore there. You can check out patreon.com/Golf Weekly for more. Right, it is less than a month to Cheltenham at this point, and every Thursday we've been checking in with Thom Malone for a countdown to Cheltenham. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, Eoin. How are you? You well?
Yeah, not too bad. So there's plenty happening, and we're actually going to start with matters outside of Cheltenham because Tiger Roll and the Grand National weights have been announced. The question, and it's been a 2-year-long question, is he going to run?
Yeah, look, I would say we'll have to actually see what happens at Cheltenham first, and he'll run in the cross country. And if the going is pretty good at Cheltenham, he will have a good chance. But yeah, he's been given just a kind of a pound off top weight, which is a big ask. He's going to carry 11 stone 9. It's again with the handicapping of the Grand National, it's a bit weird because you have to try and rate races like the cross country on par with previous Grand Nationals, which are obviously completely unique. And then, horses that are going to run the Gold Cup, the likes of, Bristol, Demai and Santini. And, in a Gold Cup, Tiger Roll would not be mapped. That is just, he'd struggle to get around. And then you're trying to think, well, should he carry almost level weights with those horses who are genuinely going to contend in a race like that? So that's the kind of puzzle for the handicapper to solve. He's given him a pound off top weight. And the horse that beat him in the cross country last year is going to carry pretty much joint top weight as well, Easy's Land. So, but looks things, once again, it will be a question of what happens at the cross country this year at Cheltenham. But look, I think he'll run. He kind of has nothing else. And if he shows any form of life at all at Cheltenham, I think he'll run the Grand National. Keith Donoghue last year on him was very, very conservative on him when he knew he was going to be beaten at Cheltenham and said, look, we'll hold on to him and wait. The ground was against him. He's had 1 or 2 little injuries. He had a little problem with his stifle after he came back from the Cheltenham meeting in November when he obviously had a little luck. But if you follow Gordon Elliott or Keith Donoghue on social media, you'll see Tiger Roll's been out and about a lot more than most of us over the last few weeks. He's been out at the beach, he's been at Cheltenham, he's been at Sally Corscadden's practicing his cross-country methods. So, yeah, Tiger Roll should be ready for Cheltenham. And look, if all goes to plan there, he will run the Grand National. If things don't go to plan at Cheltenham, I would imagine he would be retired.
Tom, I was just reading some comments from Michael O'Leary in the last day or two around Tiger Roll, and he kind of spoke about how his last couple of runs have suggested he's maybe not in love with the game anymore, according to Michael O'Leary, and how he's a small horse and the priority is to mind him. Were you surprised by comments like that from Michael O'Leary? Maybe not, given who said them, but and also, I guess, he also mentioned the Irish Grand National as a possibility, given that the handicapping might actually favour Tiger Roll a little bit better in that race.
I'd be amazed if he'd go for the Irish Grand National, just because the fences in Aintree actually suit Tiger Roll. He is quite a small horse. He's an athletic horse, but he jumps quite low and fast. And if you tried to do that in Fairyhouse, like the fences are just too big. It's genuinely unlikely he'd get round in the same way. He's an incredibly brave and risky jumper in that he just gets quite low and fast over them, almost like a hurdle. And in Aintree, the fences, they have all that, like, it looks like kind of Christmas tree cuttings on the top of them. And the horses can just kind of brush their belly through the top of them. And that just makes such a big difference, because horses who are inexperienced at Aintree actually use up too much energy by over jumping. These fences look big, but they're actually not solid through the middle. They're soft in the top. So when you jump a fence at Aintree, the ideal thing is for his horse to just kind of flick through the top of it and then keep his momentum. Whereas horses who are inexperienced at Aintree will go too fast, too early. They'll come into the first fence, which is actually quite big and wide, and they'll jump up and then down hard, and they lose all momentum. And if you think about that over the course of 22 fences, if you lose half a length at each, you're losing upwards of 12 lengths. So, like, when you have that level of efficiency where you're landing, running all the time, as is the case with Tiger Roll, he knows his way around. So that is just such a huge advantage. And again, it's why it's so difficult for the handicapper to assess him, because in a normal weights and measures situation, there is no way on earth the horse is a 168 horse. Like I say, he would not be mapped in an Irish Gold Cup or a Cheltenham Gold Cup on that rating. But he's a different horse in the cross country at Cheltenham, and he's a very different horse in the Aintree Grand National.
It sounds that if you were a Tiger Roll connection, you'd be a little bit raging by what the handicappers have done.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be very annoyed because one of the reasons he's got such, apart from his two Grand National wins, one of the reasons he has such a high rating is his performance in the cross country at Cheltenham the year before last. But the races turned out to be absolutely terrible on a form. Like, only one horse has won from that race since. And then the horse that beat him, Easy's-Land, last year, well, the handicapper's gone and said, we can't drop Tiger Roll, so Easy's-Land has to now go and be kind of top weight in a Grand National, which again seems slightly nonsensical. Look, there's lots in there. I think Burrows saying for Willie Mullins will probably end up favourite for the Grand National itself. There's lots of really good horses in it because Tiger Roll and Easy's-Land have actually such big weights and there are such high quality horses in there. There are one or two lurking around that will certainly be very, like, while Tiger Roll and Connections won't be happy with the weights they've gotten, there are a few slightly further down who'll be happy enough that... See, the thing is about Grand National horses, they have really quiet campaigns until the weights come out and then they're allowed to sort of go and get their fitness up. So over the next couple of weekends, we'll probably get a few clues as to the well-being of one or two of those potential Grand National horses.
Tiger Roll is the most spoken about horse on this show, maybe more spoken about than the likes of Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo at times. And
yeah,
it's going to continue for the next little while. Benny Desjeux, there's been big news this week.
Yeah, poor Benny Desjeux, she's going to miss the Cheltenham Festival. So obviously she won the Mare's Hurdle a couple of years ago, and she was half of that epic battle with Honeysuckle last year in the Mare's Hurdle. So she had a couple of options this year. There were kind of whispers and rumours and everything has been denied a couple of weeks ago that things weren't all well with her. But look, Willie Mullins came out and made the announcement there during the week that all is not well with Benny Desjeux and she's not going to make it. Another one who's not going to make it as well, unfortunately, is, as I tipped up in this show, Delta Work. He's not going to make the Gold Cup. So again, talking about Michael O'Leary, the significance of that is that's Michael O'Leary running out of chances to win another Gold Cup. I mean, they're winding down their racehorse operation at this stage, and Delta Work looked like one of the sort of last chances to really win a Gold Cup. They've 4 left in the race, and really you'd be surprised if any of them even run. But like I said, that the wind down of Michael O'Leary in racing and that big kind of handover of power is happening over the next sort of 18 or so months in the sport. And I think this will be the last Cheltenham of relevance for Gigginstown, really.
What are you looking at now for the Gold Cup then? You're I was checking the odds this morning, Album Photo at Plutard, still the favourites. Does the Delta Work injury change your thinking dramatically?
It changes slightly, yeah. We're going to have a weird weekend. We're going to have Champ, who's kind of 3rd or 4th in the market. He's going to run over an inadequate trip of 2 miles this weekend just to give him a really sharp prep for the Gold Cup. I'm still a friend of Santini, even though he was beaten the other week at Sandown in that rescheduled celebration chase at 14-1. I think he's a great chance. It's very boring, but there's very little to put anyone off Album Photo. He's had an ideal prep. He's had the same, route he's taken as last year. The horses that looked like they could have been threats this time last year to him have all kind of fallen off the map. And the only obvious emerging dangers we can see, maybe Champ, but he hasn't run since Cheltenham last year. Plutar, obviously very eye-catching at Leopardstown at Christmas, but he's never won over the trip. He's never, that win at Leopardstown was his first win over 3 miles, so he has to step up and trip again. And then there's another horse called Royal Pagaille, who's trained by Venetia Williams. He's an up-and-coming force, but he could potentially run in the novice event as well, although he is in the same colours as Monkfish, so that would seem unlikely. And then beyond that, you're at the kind of, Native River, he won the Gold Cup before Album Photo did. Yes, he came back, but he'll need very much like a very, very soft. If Lost in Translation could bounce back this weekend, that'd be interesting. But I genuinely can't see much past the 1st and 2nd last year of Album Photo and Santini. There's been nothing, maybe bar Plutar, who's really come out and rattled the cage in the sort of year since last year's Gold Cup.
Tom, I know we haven't touched on the novice hurdle division, so maybe we might get into that a little bit as an early look ahead to Cheltenham. But maybe if we start with the Supreme Novices Hurdle, and it's going to be a strange one this year. Normally we have the usual Cheltenham roar, first race of the festival, fans going mad. We won't have that this year, of course, but you've been taking a look at Appreciated as maybe one to watch here, and presumably Paul Townend gets the pick on that horse as well. Yeah, you would think so. Is Cheltenham even Cheltenham without that Tuesday roar before the Supreme? Look, Willie Mullins, the thing is we do have is, a Willie Mullins trained favourite for the Supreme. So you go back to, there's the Vautours and Mins and Champagne Fevers.
Appreciated is a horse I absolutely love. And the thing is as well, he's done nothing wrong, really, apart from get beaten in the Cheltenham Festival bumper last year. I would say we could end up with maybe one or two horses coming out over the next couple of weeks to challenge him. But the only one I saw in the sort of last couple of weeks, even though he's kind of already beaten him, is the Devil's Coachman for Noel Meade, who looked really, really impressive and put up a really nice time figure when winning last week. So the Devil's Coachman is one potential danger, but really appreciated. There will be no roar at Cheltenham, but the roars in the living rooms and whatever other method we can use to watch Cheltenham, the roof will be coming off, because appreciated is going to be the cornerstone of so many Irish bankers, Irish multiples, and he's been incredibly impressive in those, particularly his last two runs at Leopardstown, those two Grade 1s.
Is there a common theme you're looking for in the novice hurdle division? A horse that fits the bill across all the various races in that division at Cheltenham. Is there a way to crack this race or those races when you're putting your eye on the races?
I mean, like, the thing, generally the big stables do dominate the likes of the Supreme and the Ballymore. Ballymore first race on Wednesday. Again, Willie Mullins is a warm order favourite there with Gaillard de Meny. The thing is, you're looking for a horse that's shown you enough in the race course so far, but you still think probably has another 7 to 10 pounds of improvement in there as well. There's a horse called Brave. Also, trainers are creatures of habit. You know, when they have one good horse, they kind of like to do the same thing with it over and over and over again. So, you know, Willie Mullins used to use the likes of the Moscow Flyer hurdle at Punchestown quite a lot. Maybe not so much now because there's a new race at Naas and obviously the importance of the Dublin Racing Festival. So, you know, habits do change slightly, but one notable one is that the last time Paul Nicholls won the Challow hurdle in the UK was with a horse called Denman, who turned out to be pretty decent. And he did the same this year with Brave Man's Game, who won that Challow hurdle by 10 lengths. And he's about 5-1 for the Ballymore on Wednesday. So I certainly wouldn't be putting anyone off backing him. Actually, I think when we spoke at Christmas, I mentioned him as well. So I'm still very much on the Brave Man's Game bandwagon because he looked really, really impressive in winning that Challow hurdle. And he's another one, he's just going straight to Cheltenham from that race as well. So we know where he's at. The Albert Bartlett's on the Friday. I'm not even going to go into that because it's such a difficult race. We've had like sort of 50-1 winners and 66-1 winners over the last couple of years. So on the day, that's a race where very exposed types can actually win it. So it's actually not my kind of race at all. And then the Triumph hurdle is technically not a novice, but it's for 4-year-olds. And Gordon Elliott has just the most brilliant hand to play in that. He's got Zana here, who looks a brilliant 4-year-old. And then he's also got Quilixios, who carries the same colours as Envoy LN, very expensive purchase. And he was the Grade 1 winner at Leopardstown, the Dublin Racing Festival. They dominate the top of the market there. Gordon Elliott, brilliant team of 4-year-olds, but keep an eye on whatever, Nick. There's a hurdle coming up over the next week or so called the Adonis Hurdle at Kempton, and that's generally the best trial for the Triumph. Nicky Henderson usually sends a really good 4-year-old for that, so keep an eye out for that as well. But yeah, that's just kind of a quick run through for the novices. But generally, you know, we always have that really strong favourite for the Supreme on Tuesday. There's often a kind of an Irish banker for the Ballymore on Wednesday. Think of the likes of Samcro and that over the years. Envoy LN last year, Isterbrack back years ago as well. The Albert Bartlett's impossible. And then the Triumph looks to be Gordon Elliott's this year.
Tom, can I just mention, you've pretty much answered the question anyway on the Albert Bartlett, but I get, and a lot of punters will have PTSD speaking about the Albert Bartlett every year. It's, as you mentioned, a bit of a minefield. Are there any trends we can look at? Because even looking at last year's winner, Monkfish, and Manila Indo the previous year, relatively inexperienced. Manila Indo hadn't even won over hurdles at the time.
Yeah.
But in years, I guess, before that, it was always a horse that had won over hurdles, or at least stayed the course over hurdles. So can you spot any trends in reading something like the Albert Bartlett, or is it literally a case of stay clear?
No, the Albert Bartlett is a race because it's so punishing. It can actually, if you find one that has a lot more experience, I think a horse like maybe Fakira, who's in there at the moment, has actually run quite a lot. It's a very strong test. It's 3 miles for a novice, which is actually quite a big ask. So generally, you're going to look for a bit of proven stamina. So maybe something that's come from the point-to-point sphere. I've maybe had a couple of runs over point-to-points, but the big thing for me generally, I would always look for something at a bit of a price and having a bit of experience coming from the point-to-point sphere, because you just need so much stamina for that Albert Bartlett. And the weird thing as well, that they're kind of an unfashionable horse once they come out of it as well. Yes, we had the likes of Monkfish and Manila Indo. They're obviously going to go on and look and be strong novice chasers, staying novice chasers. But, it can be won by a sort of just bit of a slow one. You know what I mean? Like, Gordon Elliott's had some really good horses beaten in the Albert Bartlett who have turned out to be really good horses in time. So he's kind of moved away from sending his better novices down that route and prefers something like the Ballymore, which is shorter trip and it's just not as taxing. So, look, you need a horse who has that bit of experience and that bit of obvious toughness, and look, will stay that very punishing 3 miles.
Tom, great stuff as ever. Chat to you next week.
Thanks, lads.
Thom Malone there with us every Thursday morning, continuing our countdown to Cheltenham, which is less than a month away at this point. Right, it is 9:18 a.m. this Thursday morning. OTB AM is brought to you with thanks to Gillette. Good morning start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We'll be bringing you Padraig Harrington before 10 o'clock this morning. Sur Murphy joins us next to bring you our TV picks.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio. Off the ball.
So anybody whose question I read out gets a Cadbury hamper, no less. So Teddy, one for
Where's
you.
Where's mine?
It's en route.
Honestly, it's the first Cadbury's appearance I've been to. It's the first Cadbury's appearance I've been to where I've walked in a room and not seen any chocolate. It's embarrassing.
It's
You're
great.
a little fat little sausage, that's why. Did you hear what he said then? Call me a fat little sausage. You can't call me a fat little sausage on camera, I mean. No chocolate for Gaz. That's what they said on the front door.
Off the ball. Weeknights from 7 and weekends from 1.
This is OTB Sports Radio, live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
Calling all builders, joiners, plasterers and dryliners. Need advice on the right materials for the job? Consider it done. You need them on site and in your hand. Consider it done. You want access to over 10,000 products from the leading construction brands without having to start up the van. Consider it done. There's another way of doing things. E-Tag. We talk with you to solve your problem and deliver what you need directly onto site. No second guessing, no seconds wasted. Click etag.ie.
Check out the Boyle Sports app today for details on which football match is getting the no-lose treatment this week. Plus, browse through dozens of new player markets, all powered by Opta. Shots on target, left foot, right foot, headed goals, assists and more. See the Boyle Sports app for full T's and C's. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie 18+.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Welcome back. It is 9:20 and we are talking TV. Sur Murphy, how are things?
Good. How are you? Survived.
All good. Yeah, absolutely. So every week here we tell you something new to watch. We tell you what to go back and watch, and we fill you in on what we've been watching as well in between all the Premier League and Champions League football. We'll start off with what's new to watch. And what are you looking at this week, Sue?
So there's quite a few things actually. I might start with Disney Star because I keep calling it Disney Star. I don't know if it's Star by Disney or Disney Star, but I'm going to go with Disney Star. It's the new tile that's launching on Disney on Tuesday. Basically, they're going to have a heap of new content. Well, they have a heap of new content and a heap of old content that's going onto that. So all of their kind of 20th Century Fox, ABC, all of those shows. So a lot of kind of Grey's Anatomy and those kind of things are going to go up. But also, there's a huge back catalogue of old films that are going to go onto that. So that basically, if you're already under a Disney subscription, you'll get that from Tuesday. And the price, if you're joining after Tuesday, will go up. And then I think it goes up later in the year as well. It's something like $8.99 a month. But they gave me a new series called Big Sky. And there's no one really overly recognisable in it until you see Ryan Philippe. And he's kind of like the Ryan Philippe, so he's the biggest person in the show. And I honestly watched the first 15 minutes of this and thought it was absolute cheese fest and thought it was rubbish. And then about 30 minutes in, I was like, oh my God, this is great. So it's like a real mystery thriller, and they're like, he's having problems with his wife, and they're both former cops that work as like private investigators now, and they have a son, and the son's girlfriend goes missing. And that's all very like happy families and what's going on. And then as soon as the girls go missing halfway through the episode, it just goes up a notch and suddenly gets really interesting. And there was a couple of jumps in it that I wasn't expecting. It took a couple of twists and turns. Like, I can't promise the rest of the series is going to be absolutely brilliant, but the first episode was surprisingly really good. Like, I nearly gave up after 15 minutes and was actually really glad I stuck with it.
Right, that is a really good testament to anything. What are you most looking forward to seeing on Star?
I don't think there's anything massive that's coming. Like, I actually just really happy about going back and watching early Grey's Anatomy. I know that sounds really stupid, but it actually got really good, like really bad about 6 series in. But stuff like, I was looking through it yesterday, they have like Pretty Woman and just things that you're not going to be able to get access to. But I think they're going to be adding a lot of new content over the next while. And it's going to be the place to look because they're a huge streaming service now. Like, they don't just have the kids stuff. Like, that's such a big arsenal of stuff they're going to have going forward. But nothing particularly that I can think of, but just watch out for the big content that's going to go onto that streaming service.
Wrong answer. The thing you should be most looking forward to is 24. 24 coming to Disney is the most important television moment of the 21st century. Everybody gets to live day by day with Jack Bauer on demand, and that is the most important television.
Nobody else is watching that except you. Like, literally nobody in the country is watching 24 repeatedly except you.
Yeah, I was there when it got the graveyard slot on Sky One on Sunday nights after Lost and after something else. I was there through its tough days in season 7.
Yeah, my dream team used to be as well. But the other one I was going to mention this week as well, and it was like, so I sent you guys an email just so people know on Tuesday, kind of saying, here's what I'm teeing up for the week. And one of the things I'd watched was Devils, which is going to be on LTV and it's on Sky as well. And that the first 15 minutes was brilliant. I was like, this is great. Like, I love all those kind of trade and bank things. Patrick Dempsey is this guy who's like really high up in the bank. He's trying to bring this other guy up with him. And they're all out to get each other and being really underhanded. I was like, this is going to be like, this is like Wall Street in a series. It looks slick. It was David E. Kelly. And last night, Patrick Dempsey disappears after the first 15 minutes. You basically never see him again for the rest of the episode. And the rest of it was just awful. Like, really bad acting. Like, terrible.
This is Grey's Anatomy fan Sur Murphy talking about Patrick Dempsey, who is in Grey's Anatomy.
Don't call me a fan. No, Grey's Anatomy was just one of those things that, like, if you needed a good cry,
yeah,
it was something you went to. And I'll never, like, everyone has seen an episode or two of Grey's Anatomy. You'll never convince me otherwise. But it's not brilliant by any stretch of the imagination. And this certainly isn't either. Like, it looks really slick, and there was a good twist. But my God, the acting was absolutely dreadful in it. Like, so I'm sorry, it's really bad. One other
thing to mention is the Pele doc coming next week to Netflix.
Yes, I can't review it yet because it's embargoed till 3:00, so I can just like strongly point people in the direction of it. But just to give an idea, because I think people go into this thinking it's just going to be about football, and it's not giving anything away to say that it's actually going to take a look at his fame and his relationship with the dictator in Brazil and how he operated under that dictatorship and some of the stuff around the 1970 World Cup. And I can't say anything about like reviewing it, but I'm just going to strongly suggest that people watch it. It'll be out on Tuesday. I'm sure we'll be talking about it again next week anyway.
Yeah, we're going to have the directors on the show next week here on OTB AM. What are you telling us to go back and watch then this week?
I don't know if you've seen this, and this is kind of like one of those ones that was even a gem when it was out, but it's unbelievable on Netflix. It's Toni Collette stars as this detective. It's based on a true story. And I actually got food poisoning about 2 years ago and was stuck on a couch for a week. And I just flew through it. And I think once you get into it, you just can't stop, because the first episode, it's basically based on this guy who was a rapist, but he was operating in different regions. So nobody was ever picking up that he was committing the same crimes in all these different areas, because there was different areas of the police that were dealing with different victims. And the first episode is one victim, and it just tells her entire story from start to finish. And the cops literally not believing anything that she's telling them. And then it kind of switches to the two detectives who are trying to find this guy, because and two female leads as well, but they very much believe the women and believe there's a story here that's not being told, and kind of just reveals itself over 8 episodes. But my God, it totally hooks you in. Toni Collette is exceptional. She is so good. She's a real hard-ass cop with a real heart as well. And it's just, the story is like, I know I keep saying unbelievable, but it is actually an unbelievable story. And so they really stuck, they really got the title really good, but yeah. They really stuck to the facts as much as they could. Like, I went back and read about the cases afterwards, and they really tried to just tell the victim's story. So it's brilliant. Like, if you haven't seen it, it's well worth a watch.
Right, that's great. That's available on Netflix now. It's called Unbelievable, and I just did a quick Google there. The IMDb score is very impressive indeed. Can't believe I haven't heard of that. Right, so the update. This is obviously our favourite show of. This is usually where Jer comes in and absolutely lambasts period dramas or anything British really. What are you watching this week, and what have you been keeping an eye on?
Me, so I was watching. So, me and Eoin used to sit across from each other in the office before COVID, and Eoin would regularly talk about how the office was the greatest thing that ever happened to him in his entire life, and he would there was office jokes that I would regularly miss out on because he'd be like, the office. Ugh. So I went back the other day and I was like, okay, I'm going to start the office, and I started watching the first 2 episodes with my husband, the US one, and he was like, this is just exactly the same as the English one, because he'd never seen the US one. And I'm still lost because I haven't seen the English one either. But I didn't laugh, but I like the characters enough to keep going. So I'm 2 episodes in, and I will definitely keep going. But I just don't know if I'm ever going to be as obsessed with it as you are, Owen, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
You might be.
Yeah, I'm with Eoin on this one, because it's the kind of thing. Michael Scott, played by Steve Carell, is quite a greasy, somewhat unlikable character, I think, in season 1. But then thereafter turn him into this lovable rogue that you just warm to and love. And I'm similar to you, Sue, in that I was quite late to The Office US. I've now watched it, and my brother is obsessive of the US Office, and it's constantly on in our house. I think once you've watched it once, you will watch it 4 or 5 times. It's like Friends. You'll have an episode on in the background. You'll rewatch episodes. Like Dwight Schrute is one of the funniest characters in television history, in my opinion, and the relationship between him and Jim Halpert, the back and forth, it's one of the best TV double acts you'll ever see.
Yeah.
And then if you want romance, you've got Jim and Pam, which is the love story is so deep that fans of the show actually get upset on social media, knowing that they aren't together in real life. So this is, I'm with Eoin on this. It's one of the greatest comedy shows ever made.
I'm going to stick with it, I promise. I will, and I'll give reports back, because I do like the characters enough. And I also think that it was because Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant are executive producers, it didn't have its own thing going. And I remember Owen saying to me before, it takes, 3 or 4 you were saying, before it actually becomes its own thing. So I kind of feel like you are watching just a rip-off of the English one, you know?
Totally. And it doesn't actually work that well. Like, as Shane says, once Steve Carell gets less greasy, he suddenly becomes a little bit more funny, and they just soften up the character. They try to create David Brent, and it just doesn't work either in an American accent, or else Steve Carell just couldn't pull it off. They completely soften the character. He becomes less of an outright dickhead and more of a lovable dickhead, and that is what the beauty of season 2 is. If you're not liking it come the middle of season 2, then you're never going to love it. But I 100% the first couple episodes aren't a real representation. Also, Sheahan Hannon putting the US Office and Friends into the same category. Sacrilege. The US Office is up here.
I was hoping he missed it.
Somewhere down here. On in the background.
What I meant was, you watch Friends, the way people have Friends on in the background as a kind of, I don't know what to watch, so I just throw on an episode of Friends. The Office is similar in that vein only, Eoin, in that you could rewatch episodes. I'm definitely not bringing the two of them together thematically.
There's nothing wrong with Friends. You're being very insulting towards Friends here, Eoin. Very snobby, like I would say.
Yeah, no, I'll take that. I'll take the snobbiness towards Friends any day of the week.
They both have some top guest appearances as well. That's the other thing about The Office. I wasn't too sure about Will Ferrell, his guest appearance, but you have people like Idris Elba, Kathy Bates, Catherine Tate is fantastic in it as well. So they all come in and add an extra dimension to the show. And then some of the side characters, Toby Flenderson, the dry wit and dry delivery of Toby as a character. And then some of the other ones, Kevin as well. Just some of the cold opens as well are just extraordinary. It just keeps and they're such short episodes as well, 20-25 minutes.
That's what I love about it, because we went back and we were actually in such a what we watched. We went back and watched Schitt's Creek, and I'd only watched it about 6 months before. But some days you just need something that's just 20 minutes, and you haven't got much more time than that, and it's perfect for that kind of stuff. Or it's not too much misery. Like, there's so much misery around. Like, you need something that's just a bit of a break,
Yeah, we should power rank the Office characters. At number 1 is Ryan. Ryan is the best Office character that there is. And
we shouldn't have started this. Like, we could just go and he could just talk the rest of this hour.
It could happen. So I'm going to put a stop on it there, unless anybody has any final thoughts, because we got a very important comment from Peter. Here, where is Owen's weekly review of Married at First Sight Australia Season 6? And Peter, I just have one question. Do I not need to watch Season 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 first, get a bit of character development going on, find the peaks and troughs of Married at First Sight Australia before I actually get into Season 6? That is a question I would have for you. Whatever the answer is, I'll be keen to hop into it soon. But what I've been doing for the last week, and I've let this go way too long in my life without touching this, was True Detective. Now, what can you say? What can you say about that? Was it like Season 1? It's just absolutely sensational.
It's actually been another one of those ones that I rewatched recently because I watch a lot of TV, my husband doesn't, and usually I'd get to the end of something and I'd be like, you actually need to watch that, that's amazing. And then I have to go back and rewatch it all again with him. So that's what happened with True Detective, and I didn't regret 1 second of rewatching it. It's just like Matthew McConaughey in the first day, and actually Woody Harrelson is one of my favourite actors. I just love him. But their dynamic and their relationship and the interwoven storyline and how it all changes, like pace and the wife, and it's just like you could watch. You don't even need the mystery that happens in True Detective. I would definitely just watch the two of them as a buddy movie. Fine. Like, they're just fantastic. And you were saying you've only watched Season 1. Like, 2 is rubbish, don't even bother going anywhere near it. But 3 is exceptional as well. It's really, really good. It's a very different series, but it's brilliant. Really brilliant.
Shane, you were saying that he almost got the Woody Harrelson part, Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, I actually have the copy, so I have a bit of a man crush on Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Always have, and like similarly to Eoin, I've only seen Season 1 of True Detective, but I read.
Oh, I just bought this book.
Yeah, Green Lights. It's one of the great autobiographies, I think, because he kept notes over, was it 35 years and diaries, and has just transformed into this book. It is, I'm not bragging here, well I am, it's signed by the author, so like me and Matthew are pretty close. Look at that for his signature, by the way. One of the best. Can you see that up close?
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's extraordinary. But yeah, there is a section in here, and I'll read it to you. So he nearly got the part that Woody Harrelson had. So he writes here, the role I was offered was that of Marty Hart. The role I wanted was Rustin Cole, the greatest detective I'd ever met. I couldn't wait to turn the page to see what came out of his mouth next. An island of a man who lived between the mortal respect of death and the immortal need for its deliverance. A man who, without sentiment, fiercely sought the truth, no matter how much it burned. He made me sweat in my boots. And then he told the directors, if I can be Rustin Cole, I'm in. And they gave him the part. And, long story short, Woody Harrelson, of course, gets the other role. And then he writes, when True Detective aired, Camilla, that's his wife, and I watched it every Sunday night like everyone else. I obviously had the opportunity to see it all in one sitting prior to its release, but I chose to digest it as it was designed to be consumed, 1 hour every Sunday night, followed by water cooler talk on Monday morning with anticipation for the next episode. It was my favourite thing on TV, still is. And he goes on to say how he got that Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club, and this was free advertising for him as he was trying to get that Oscar, that he was on TV every Sunday night, ended up getting the Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club. So clearly a role that was very important to him, but an extraordinary actor.
Oh, yeah. And a really, really smart guy as well. I think kind of people always want to paint him as the really good-looking guy that likes to take his top off. And he does. He really likes to take his top off. Like, there's that story about Magic Mike that they were like, you don't have to take your top off for the strip scene. And he's like, no, I don't mind doing it. So, but he's always kind of painted as that person, but he's so incredibly smart in interviews and a really interesting guy as well,
Yeah, we are unfortunately out of time. I've got I've got a really hot take on True Detective, which unfortunately we don't have time to get. I actually just think that the narrative is a little bit overrated. You're dead right in what you say, that the characters are just so bloody good, and episode 4 is the best episode in the history of television. But I actually think the last couple of episodes are a little bit average because the plot isn't a 10 out of 10, whereas the characters, the acting, the cinematography is a 10 out of 10. That is my hot take. No room for any rebuttals on that. We're out of time. Sur Murphy, thank you very much. What to watch, what's new to stream. Pele is out next week. Unbelievable on Netflix. Go back and watch that. And True Detective, or the US office, was our update this week. OTB AM is live every morning from 7:30 in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Adrian is back with us tomorrow morning, by the way, and we're going to be talking football with Andy Mitten. We've got the crappy quiz, and Cora Staunton joins us from Australia as well. A reminder that episode 2 of the Six Nations show is live with Neil Tracy, Johnny Murphy and Alison Miller at 10:30. But right now, we're bringing you Padraig Harrington in conversation with Joe.
We are joined from LA, I'm presuming, by 3-time major winner and Ryder Cup captain Padraig Harrington. Always great having you on. Thanks for the time.
I'm actually still in Monterey. I'm still in the room in Pebble Beach.
Trapped.
It's a nice place to be trapped. Yeah, I'm overlooking actually the people teeing off on the first hole there. You might hear a few shots in the background. So, slight difference in standard from what I was watching last week to what I'm watching this week.
I presume when you're in for a 10-day stint, you go for the presidential suite, no?
You know, if you were prepared, that's what you would do. You'd actually have a house with you or something like. I tell you what, if I was prepared, I would have had anything that had a net in it, so I could hit shots, some sort of golf simulator. But no, I'm actually in the room that I checked into, which is a nice room. So I'm not. I hadn't had a problem with 10 days here. There hasn't been an issue at all.
If people are tuning in wondering what the hell we're talking about, you were off the plane last week all set to play at Pebble Beach and then tested positive for COVID. Was that a shock? Had you been feeling okay?
It was a real shock because to get on the plane, I had to have a negative test. So I was negative on the Saturday. And then when I arrived, I was positive. I felt good, no problem. I did have a high viral load, so they were predicting that I would have symptoms, and I did have some symptoms. As I said, they were mild enough, so you know, it was a reasonable win in any situation. If you're going to catch it, which you don't want to do, to obviously get a mild dose of it is kind of okay.
Must be very worrying news to suddenly be hit with. What went through your mind initially?
Well, I think it was easier to be hit with it without having the symptoms. So, you know, I suppose I worried when the symptoms started coming on, but I never lost my sense of taste or smell. And I think those sort of neurological things are more of a worry. I suppose they're all of a worry, but I had one friend who'd gone through a similar case to me that had it, and he was the best resource for me because he kept telling me how mentally he was up and down, that, you know, you get a sniffle at any stage and you think it's back, or you get a cough and you wonder what it is. So he was very good to talk to, I've got to say, and certainly had me prepared for what I would be thinking mentally as I went through it. So it's been quite reasonable. I haven't had I'm sure everybody would, if this was it, they would be good with that. But you know, clearly it's obviously a very serious thing for a lot of people.
So you're feeling pretty close to normal now?
I am pretty close to my normal, yes. I've even got, after doing a couple of days practice in the room, I've even got muscle soreness at this stage. So I am definitely getting back to normal.
And is fatigue an issue? I mean, is there any way of predicting if you'll have long-term fatigue? That seems like one of the, well, to say the least, irritating things that can afflict many people. Yeah,
you know, this is obviously long COVID is an issue. And to be honest, I think I would have been pretty well versed on what the scenario is if you get COVID. I have to study up on what you've got to do after you have COVID. And it's quite complicated. It doesn't make it easy to travel, that's for sure. Like, you know, they're seeing reports I can't travel back to Ireland unless I get a negative PCR test. So that could take months. So yeah, it's a bit, there's a complications. It's not as straightforward as you think afterwards either, even though supposedly I'm immune for 8 months, or possibly immune for 8 months. Obviously nobody really knows, but you obviously still have to do everything, wear the masks and that, because you can still transmit it, even though you can't necessarily, or unlikely to necessarily get reinfected, but it's a possibility. So it's still up in the air. It's not as clean as you would like it to be, but you know, having had caught it, and I actually, it's strange, I feel bad that I caught it. You know, you kind of go, well, you know, did you do everything you could have done? And clearly the fact that I've gone out and played tournaments means I didn't do everything that I possibly could have done. I could have stayed at home. So you kind of feel a little bit guilty that you've caught it, but thankfully I haven't been a burden to anybody. So going forward, hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah, no, we wish you well. I mean, I think everybody was very concerned when they saw the news. It's horrible news to see about anybody. Ronan Flood, your caddy, people might be wondering about, he tested negative.
Yeah, amazing. Like we spent like over that weekend, because I missed the cut, I spent a lot of time in Ronan's company. We watched, like we sat through the whole of the Super Bowl sitting next to each other. We travelled in the car, we travelled on the plane. Luckily that it was a charter flight we went on, and it was close to empty, so strangely nobody was near me on the plane. So that was good, except for my caddy who was sitting opposite me. So it was amazing. Ronan didn't catch it, and it just, as I said, this is, you know, it's such a complicated thing, the virus, and who gets it and why you get it. You know, it does seem to be a little bit of a lottery in many cases, and thankfully he didn't end up with any symptoms, but he still had to quarantine too. So he had to do his 7 days. He got a couple of tests to clear it up, and he's not allowed into you know, even he's not allowed indoors or anything like that at the event at the moment, even though he was negative at all times.
So that's the thing. I mean, you get released, I suppose, for want of a better term, tomorrow, and then you're going to play Riviera afternoon tea time and give it a go. Yeah,
look, as I said, if, you know, I wouldn't do this necessarily if I had, you know, other options, but my option is, I'm here, I might as well go play golf. Clearly I'm not prepared, but it's not like I can go home, or it's not like I'm kind of stuck in limbo in that sense. So it did also give me something to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So, you know, I've been focused on, okay, I can go out and do this and go play. And I am taking a chance, as it's not a chance, but, you know, in terms of golfing wise, it's a bit strange to go without having played, let alone having played a practice round. And I did notice that I did get a late like a late tee time, but a 10th tee I start on, which, you know, to most people it's kind of irrelevant whether you start in the first or the 10th, except for my second and my third tee shots of the day, particularly the 12th hole tee shot has a very tight out of bounds on, and I still won't know how I'm hitting the golf ball. I would have much preferred to start in the first hole and got a few of those wider tee shots out of the way so that I have an idea what's in my swing that day. So I'm already having nightmares about the 12th tee shot. It's one of the toughest of the year. So to come so quickly will be it could make or break my whole week.
For people who heard you cough there and they're listening on the radio, you did take a sup of something before that, so I think it was more that than coughing.
Yes, I'm actually drinking tea. I'm quite a tea addict, certainly in the mornings anyway. So that was a little bit of a stutter. But look, I have a tiny nasal drip as well, so I'm sure I will have a little cough and this, that, and the other. But I'm through the CDC infection time. So I'm good to go. Mind you, I'm sure. If I was coughing and spluttering near you, you wouldn't be too keen on that. But I am through the phase.
Yeah, no, don't take it personally tomorrow if the two boys aren't too keen to get into a chat with you. I would think.
Yeah, I was. You know, I probably will stay out of most people's way, but it's irrelevant. I'm through the time.
Sure.
I can't be infectious anymore. So that's just it. So.
No, I know that, and the PGA Tour have been pretty safe about all this as well. One of the Harrington staples over the year, anytime I hear you being interviewed or chat to you myself about life on tour, is get out of the hotel room. Do not be trapped with your thoughts in that hotel room. So, 10-day stint, how have you filled it?
Yeah, I binged Netflix to start off with. I did 2 days went through Mindhunter, the first two seasons of that, which was great. But then I got bored of it very quickly.
It's a bit formulaic. Any Bridgerton?
You know, I didn't go. I got bored of Netflix. I kind of hit a wall with Netflix.
Right. Okay.
Just the whole idea of that. Somebody sent me on an 80s nostalgia WhatsApp, you know, of 4 minutes of TV programs from the 80s, and wow, did I go down the rabbit hole. Like I honestly, I watched every #1 video from the 80s that was on YouTube. So from the US and from I suppose the UK charts as we would. So like I watched and all the old shows and things like that. I found that more interesting, but I struggled to get back into. I haven't completed one season of anything since that day, to be honest. Since I did the first 2 seasons of Mindhunter, the only 2 seasons. So it's kind of been a bit of this and a bit of that, a few movies. The last couple of days I've been back. Like I rested fully for the first week because I was wary of fatigue. And the last couple of days I've been back, quite a few meetings, Ryder Cup stuff. I've done a few interviews too. So I've actually had full mornings, and I've been doing a bit of, as I said, swinging in the room. I am fascinated. I'm touching my left shoulder here because I got DOMS, which is incredible, from swinging a golf club, that I could actually have, muscle soreness. I was swinging, I bring my own pillow and I swing into that as an impact. And just the bracing as I hit has given me my pec minor here has given me quite a bit of soreness, which is, it just goes to show that it is possible, even in a hotel room, to work on something or change something and actually have a material effect on your body.
No better man. And are you somebody that likes to sit with your own thoughts for hours on end? Are you somebody who might journal down memories, hopes, dreams, ambitions, journal, a diary, or do you like to keep busy and not go down that sphere?
I had two separate, text messages, and they were text messages, looking to do my autobiography this week, or to start it. And who was the
who was the second person after Paul Kimmage?
It was an American, so I've done some work with him on other stuff. So there was two. All right. Look, I'm not ready for that either. So I didn't. I don't know. I'm not. I don't get too withdrawn in myself. No. So I don't. I try not to. I would actually deliberately try not to. I play one video game, so I can lose myself in that for an hour at a time. So I can get lost in that. That takes up some time, and most of the other time it's something scheduled in there in terms of meetings and that. But I would definitely. I have to say, after doing 10 days, I would struggle with this concept of, like, I really do need to get out and be busy. I struggle. I felt, I'm not sure if it's from COVID, but I would felt unduly tired at times, that you go, God, whereas the last couple of days, by doing a little bit of exercise, I've actually felt a little bit more energized during the day. Now, that could be obviously the recovery process, but it just feels like the more I do, the more I feel like doing.
Yes, no, it makes sense as well. Because anytime I listen to you, even say talking about golf, you have an amazingly detailed recall. Like, you have a really good memory, so you could easily, just to drift away in your own head for hours on end. And I don't know, maybe you avoid it because you sense that wouldn't be a great place to hang out for anyone.
Yeah, that's why I avoided it. I'm not saying I wouldn't daydream about good stuff, and I'm not saying I haven't visualised playing this course coming up this week, but I try not to dwell too long on it. I did get somebody sent me a video from 1993 of me playing golf in India, and that was interesting, looking at the old swings and things like that.
How did it look?
And it was truly shocking.
Was it?
Shockingly bad. Yeah. I for once, whenever I look back at myself, and everybody has hang-ups, I always think I look fat back in the day. But for this one, I actually look pretty strong, but my action was really... It's actually hard to believe that a golfer could have come out of this action that was there. But yeah, clearly it did.
When was your swing at its best? What year would you like to, if there was a newsreel coming up, what year do you want them to pick?
There was a recent one of these, like an Instagram thing where they went through the years of my golf swing, and I was shocked how much better my swing was in 1995. There was some before I turned pro, my swing was much better than I think that my idea of my swing was back to that sort of 92, 93 time, whereas 95 it looked pretty good. I think 99, when I started working with Bob Torrance, it turned the corner to the extent of it was a really nice golf swing. And to be honest, since then, it hasn't physically changed the look too much since then, and I would be happy with it. I have changed. It would be interesting to see. I've tried to make a change this week in the room. So I'm always feeling like I don't. If you ever looked at my golf swing, I don't have the picture perfect finish to my swing. I've always found it quite a strain. So I've actually worked on it this week in the room, and I'll be interested to see if it transfers over to actually hitting a golf ball rather than just swinging in the fresh air. But I'm looking for like I have always said this, if you ever look at any of my tips, the easiest way to become a good golfer is to pose at the end of your golf swing. Because if you can hold that pose, it means you've moved. You have to have moved properly if you finish properly. So I've spent a bit of time trying to finish properly.
Well, that's an interesting way to go about it. So you'll find out about half an hour before your tea time works, and then you're on the 10th with that tricky par 4 followed by the 12th. Good move.
Yes, yeah. Well, you know, and this is I've cut down my warm-ups now. I'm down to I'm trying to copy Paul Mcginley. Paul Mcginley used to turn up like 20 minutes on the range before his tee time. Like I'd be finished my whole practice and he'd be just going to hit a few. So I've reduced, because I'm getting older, I've reduced down to probably, you know, a 40-minute range session. But obviously tomorrow I'm probably going to try and end up being there nearly over an hour and a half beforehand, just so I can hit a few extra balls. You know, the things to concentrate on, and this would be good for anybody who's going to a new golf course. I'll hit a few bunker shots to get a feel for the sand. But here's one that most amateurs use and will never practice. I'll practice from off the fringe of a green. So I'll go to I actually have to do it on the chipping green, but I'll go sort of 3 yards, 5 yards, 8 yards, 10 yards off the green and putt through that fringe. Because you tend to put a lot from off the green in golf, but very few people ever practice it. And the pace, once you get good at it, it's a really easy shot, but you do have to always, that's the one thing I would do at every tournament, and I will do tomorrow, is make sure I get the feel for the fringe as much as the feel for the pace of the green.
So your form of late, I know you missed the cut in Phoenix. Before that, it was 8 cuts in a row made, which was your best run since 2012. You finished 6th in the Middle East. I saw you saying you're driving a bit. Driving's in a nice place. You're putting better. It's very, very decent form.
Yes, I you know, it did start off with putting a bit better, and it's really tough when you're out on tour and you're a little bit on the edge of everything, because, like, you know, any week I'm up there, I'm thinking I've got to play great. You know, I'm under pressure to play well, to try and be in there. And if you're not holding the putts, it just, you're behind that 8 ball. There's so much stress on. Like, I could have an 8-footer in the middle of the first round, and it's like I'm putting to win the tournament. You know, if you look at somebody like Dustin Johnson, who's clearly playing so well and world number 1, he's creating so many chances that, you know, he's not under pressure to hold all those 10-footers, 8-footers, because there's just another one coming around the corner on the next hole. And when you're doing that, you get in that comfort zone, you tend to hold more. I struggled, but I'm starting to hold a few. And it's interesting, because I'm holding, I know I'm going on to tough greens this week, so I could be putting myself under pressure here, but because I'm putting out and holding out better, I now am more aggressive from 20 feet, which means I'm holding a few more birdie putts. So it kind of, it's a huge part of the game. Hold a few putts and then you play a little bit better. And like, I don't think over those 8 weeks, I think I was only going forward. I think I was because I was driving the ball well, and I'm straight and long. It kind of, I haven't hit my irons as well as I could do, but I see that coming with a bit of play. So yeah, I feel good. It's around the corner. Might be a bit of a stretch this week, but I'm now going to enter 2 more tournaments in the next couple of weeks, because I've nothing else to do, basically.
Yeah. And do you still, because I always sense with you still deep down have a deep belief that on a certain week, big tournament, British Open, weather the right way, you'll pop up and surprise a few people some Saturday evening and be in the hunt Sunday, and you'll fancy yourself. I know that was how you felt a couple of years ago. Do you still feel that now at 49?
I definitely feel that if I was in the position, I can do it.
Yeah, it's about getting there.
I think, yeah, it's about getting there. I still play better at the odd shot where I see where I'm under a lot of pressure, stress. I still hit that better than I do when I'm in between relaxed and stressed, let's say. So I can see that the odd time when I'm on that cut line, or I need to hit a shot, when there's a shot to, you know, when my back's to the wall, I still have it. I know that. And I'm more likely to hold a putt in that situation.
Why can't you channel that a bit more often on a Thursday?
It just doesn't work like that. It just doesn't. You need butterflies, you need excitement, you need nerves, you need the situation. Like, you know, the logic, if we could bring logic to everything, life would be so easy. Like, I would turn around and I'd walk on the tee and strut my stuff, and, you know, stand there like I've done it, and hit shots with no fear and all those things. It's so easy to say it, but to actually physically believe it and do it. But I'm happy with my swing and my game that I'm actually working towards being better mentally. And I've given myself the year. And I think this is what sometimes people do. And definitely I would fall into that I think I can do it next week. Whereas it takes longer than that. It takes a bit of time to get into it. And this is, you might have seen it in those last 8 events, but I'm looking forward to having a nice run of events where each week I get a little bit better rather than trying to be, fix it all in 1 week.
You're 50 this year. Will you go straight into the major events at senior tour level?
I'm exempt, yes. What will I do? It will all depend on how I play in the regular events. If I don't compete to win an event this year, I would be gone as quick as anything to the Champions Tour.
Right.
If I do compete and think I could, the problem with the Champions Tour, and as I see it, and I'm only looking in, if you go, I don't think you can come back.
Yes.
So I don't think, you even see Phil doing it. I just think it's a different competitive level. I know they shoot great scores. I know it's competitive out there, but the golf courses are easier, the pin positions are easier, a little slower. You're just not coming back to the pressure and stress of the young guys if you go. But I'm also aware if you don't go quickly, you're missing out on the opportunity to be competitive as quick as possible. So, if I want to have a great Champions Tour career, I need to start when I'm 50, not when I'm 55.
Yeah, seems to be the way. You win early and quickly. A few things going on in the world of golf. Jordan Spieth, I'm sure you're watching it. 254-hole leads out of nowhere, and he was such a compelling player when he was winning, and in a way he's just as compelling now as he's fighting to come back. The driver's still kind of not quite there for him, but there's something happening. Are you optimistic we might see Spieth winning again, do you think?
Oh, I think winning again, yes. Yeah, I think he has the ability to do great things, and he has the ability to do things both sides of that needle, as in he can hit a bad shot, he can hit a good shot. So that's somebody who can win and will win again. Is he going to live up to the highs and the peaks that he had? It's very hard to live up to the past. Your own perception of what you did and how you played is probably up there. You probably put it too high up. I'm sure you look back and you think you never hit a bad shot type thing. So it's very hard to live up to your past expectations.